This is Atomic Shinobi and today I'm going to narrate first part of what if Naruto was trained by Minato and Kurama after Forbidden Scroll incident. If you enjoy this video, please like, share and subscribe to this channel. All wasting no more time, let's start the story.
Naruto waited impatiently in his academy seat. He knew he couldn't do the Bunshin, which he would soon have to do. He began to perspire. I'm going to fail once more, poorly, he thought. Uzumaki, Naruto, Oshish. In the thoughts of Naruto. Naruto surveyed his surroundings. He appeared to be in a cage in a sewer. He appeared to be a tall, 6 feet 3 inches man with 9 long tails, black hair with red highlights hanging over his eyes, scalpel, sharp claws, and hollow, blood stained fangs. He gazed at Naruto below. I see you are having some trouble. Who are you? Naruto asked, glancing up at the man. The almighty Kyuubi. Kyuubi roared, releasing fox like waves of visible energy. Naruto broke out in a sweat. Kyuubi stumbled and then straightened up, saying, Right. Listen, I may be the king of demons, but that's only by birth. I'm actually a nice, sweet, gentle guy. Anyways, I noticed you needed some help with just about everything relating to ninjas. I'm going to help you. I don't know any jutsu aside from the ones you know, but I'm a master of taijutsu, and can help you with speed, strength, healing, endurance, slightly better chakra control, etc. etc. All you have to do is peel off that. He gestured to the cage's center. Seal. Alright? Naruto gave it a look. Then he grinned. Alright. I'm gonna be the ultimate ninja. Datbeo. Kyuubi sighed. Naruto nodded forcefully before tearing off the seal. Kid, that is really annoying. Oh, and by the way, when I come out, call me Arashi. Returning to reality. After shivering, Naruto made a few seals and began to descend the stairs to Iruka and Mizuki. He cried out, Clone Jutsu. After a period of inaction, Naruto's blonde hair began to grow red highlights, his teeth developed fangs, and he reached a height of roughly 5 feet 4. 5 clones then appeared out of nowhere. Iruka gave a nod. You barely pass, as it took a while, but you made the most clones, and if I may ask, why did you find it necessary to use a henge? Naruto appeared perplexed. A henge? I'm not using a henge. Naruto was tapped by Iruka. He raised his eyebrows. You're right. It's not a henge, it's actually a solid transformation. What is a solid transformation? A terrified Naruto inquired. Naruto examined the mirror that Iruka had given him. He became motionless. Arashi. What? It looks really good, you have to admit. The girls are all staring at you right now. Really? Lovely. Naruto pondered. When he turned, he saw that many girls were staring at him. I guess Naruto looks good, but he will never be able to match Sasuke-kun. Sakura pondered. I wonder if he's single, Ino thought. Hinata gaped at him and thought, Naruto-kun. Then she passed out. Naruto's eyebrow went up. Later. Wearing his shiny new Hite.8, Naruto left the room. He smiled and then he shrank down, stumbling a little. I'm sorry, child. You can only use chakra to resemble my demonically attractive self. Naruto gave a snort. Demonically attractive. He then heard Sakura's name called for a team, followed by his own, and he cheered in triumph. Then he groaned when he heard Sasuke's name called. Not the Teme, he pondered. The Uchiha? No, the girl would worry me more. She doesn't come across as very kind. She is also totally flat. Not to mention pretty ugly. Arashi then made Naruto turn his head. That girl looks hot now. Lovely hair, a growing chest, adorable eyes. What the devil? You took over my body, but why? To show you a better option for a partner than that weirdo with the pink hair. She is not even yours, she is a Naruto fangirl. So, what makes Hinata superior? Kid, I just stated all the reasons. In addition, she is at least impartial toward you. Which, with the flat-chested bitch, is better than you could ask for. Don't call Sakura-chan a bitch, please. Will you two stop talking? An unidentified voice shouted. Naruto blinked. Who are you? He pondered. Just think about it, I must speak with you. Wow. Datbeo, I'm beginning to hear voices in my head, and they're not mine. Strange. What else might occur in the future, I wonder? Naruto was clueless about the future, especially the far future. He would experience a lot of wonderful things, as well as a lot of surprises, sad things, and much more. Much, much more. In the thoughts of Naruto. Naruto turned to face the tall figure in front of him, who had yellow hair and a long cloak with red flames on it. Arashi smiled. He said, Hey, Minato. Naruto's gaze expanded. Naruto grinned and exclaimed, "Minato Namikaze? As the fourth Hokage? Awesome, you're my idol." Minato ruffled Naruto's hair and laughed. He said wistfully, "I know all about you, son." With a stutter, Naruto pointed a finger at Minato as his jaw fell. He cried, I'm your son." Minato gave a nod. Minato cleared his throat as Naruto sheepishly put down his finger, saying, "It's not polite to point, Naruto. You see, while Kyuubi-san gives you far better strength and chakra, he has chakra control that is almost as bad as yours. However, I am a master of chakra control, can actually teach you taijutsu forms instead of using brute strength. Oh, and did I mention? I actually know ninjutsu, unlike the Kyuubi." Naruto smiled. "Awesome," Arashi snorted, "however. Please. He can learn ninjutsu and taijutsu, but you can't get brute force without tons of training. You can't learn taijutsu or ninjutsu without lots of training either, Kyuubi-san." "I already said I want to be called Arashi." For what seemed like an eternity, Naruto observed the two arguing. Minato finally looked at Naruto. "Anyways, Arashi and I have reached an agreement. You can use both of us for battles," Naruto said with a grin. "Cool. However, Naruto, you shouldn't rely on us like a bloodline. Doing that will be your downfall, just like with the Uchihas. Well, I can tell Kyuubi has given you chakra like that of a low jonin, so I'm going to teach you a jutsu that requires little to no chakra control, but is infinitely useful." Naruto began to salivate. "What is it? Tell me, Dad, tell me." "Dad." For a moment, Minato thought, "I always wanted my son to call me that." Then he jolted back to the present. "It's called the Shadow Clone Jutsu. It makes solid clones that can use jutsu. And when they're dispelled, they give you all of the information it learned." He then created a seal. Naruto angrily nodded before creating the seal, saying, "Just make this seal, and you'll create a shadow clone." He faded into the real world and said, "Thanks, Dad." Minato grinned. "Kushina, I wish you were here." The real world. 20 copies of Naruto appeared and began to walk around after he created a seal. Iruka was taken aback. "Naruto, this shadow clone jutsu works really well, huh?" Naruto smiled. Iruka blinked. "Shadow clones? Could you verify that he is a shadow clone with your Byakugan, Hinata?" Hinata's eyes widened as she realized that she was actually being told to check out Naruto. Who was she to disobey orders? After blushing, she said, "All right, Iruka. Sensei. Byakugan. Well, his clones are solid, and seem to have chakra pathways," she said, turning off her Kekai Genkai before she got a nosebleed and nodding weakly as she examined Naruto while attempting to avoid looking at his privates. "So they are shadow clones," Iruka said, nodding. "You've just mastered a B-ranked Kenjutsu, Naruto. Congratulations." Naruto smiled. "Fantastic." Iruka grinned in response, but he was truly taken aback. He couldn't understand how Naruto had discovered the existence of such a jutsu, let alone how he could create 20 clones, each using a 20th of his chakra, and not get tired. It was amazing, almost unthinkable. Nevertheless, he grinned as the Jonin from the other teams entered and picked up the new Genin before leaving to complete some paperwork. Later, given that the Jonin instructor for his team had not yet arrived, Naruto thought, "Oh, I know, I'll put that eraser on the door so it will fall and hit his head." "That's pathetic, Kit. How about you shoot him a kunai with those rubber bands?" "Son, you could kill him, and that would be dire." "Yes, Dad." "Good." At that moment, a man entered through the doorway and surveyed them all. "Kakashi?" Minato wondered. "Who?" After the deaths of his friends Rin and Obito Uchiha, my old student was a little gloomy and depressed. "I don't understand why he would be upset about the death of Uchiha." "Naruto. Obito and Itachi were both excellent ninjas who were very kind and wanted the best for the village." "All right." Glancing at the three genin left, Sasuke, Naruto, and Sakura, Kakashi said simply, "I'll meet you on the roof." Sasuke grunted, Sakura nodded, and Naruto nodded too, before jumping out of the window and swinging up onto a brick that protruded slightly, then using that to get onto the roof. Kakashi was already there, reading a book. A book with an orange cover, and Minato appeared to be dejected. Kakashi read adult fiction to overcome his depression. Couldn't he have just gotten a girlfriend or something? Naruto laughed, and Kakashi glanced at him before returning to his book. He closed the book when Sakura and Sasuke showed up. "All right, so, how about we introduce ourselves? Name, hobbies, dreams, likes, and dislikes." "Sensei, why don't you demonstrate?" "All right, my name is Kakashi, and I have a lot of interests. I don't intend to share my dreams or likes and dislikes with you. You, Pinky." "I'm Sakura, my likes." Giggles, my dreams. Turns to Sasuke and giggles, my hobbies. How about the things you don't like, Naruto? Naruto drenched in sweat. Okay, now you. Uchiha Sasuke is my name. I dislike a lot of things and like very few. Alright, Naruto, I want to do something that will help you. You see, I'm going to permanently fuse with you approximately 10 to 15% so that you'll have better chakra control and other things. Oh, and I'm going to speak for you during your introduction so you don't look foolish. Alright, Dad. Alright, you blondie. I'm Minato Namikaze, and I like to make new jutsu, Rin, Obito, Kakashi, and Kushina. Chan. I dislike Orochimaru and people who attack my village. My dream is to raise my son well. My hobbies are being the 4th Hokage. Naruto got up and cleared his throat before noticing that he was a little taller and more muscular. God, how could I have been so stupid? Naruto is Minato's son, Kakashi said, his visible eye widening. Amazing, Sasuke thought. What on earth, Baka, Yondaime is not you. With the exception of the field he would be going to for a test tomorrow, Naruto carefully rubbed the swelling lump on his head from Sakura. When Kakashi left, Naruto got up to follow him, but Sasuke grabbed his arm and stopped him. Even though you were always the last to die, Naruto was able to use a B-ranked kenjutsu. How? Naruto gave him a look and said, Sasuke. I have the most chakra of any academy student. Even though you might be the rookie of the year with elemental jutsu, above average taijutsu, and good kenjutsu. Minato was obviously still talking when he said, so, I will be able to perform more ninjutsu than you, but you are still the second best in our team. The second best? Snarled Sasuke. As he nodded, Naruto said, Kakashi, you, me, Sakura. I've always prided myself on being better than Naruto, but Naruto has so much chakra and can do a non-academy jutsu, while I barely have genin level chakra and can only do the academy 3. Sakura noticed a stray tear was running down her cheek and quickly wiped it away. Sasuke stopped himself from attacking Naruto as soon as he realized what Naruto was saying. Sakura was left alone when Naruto and Sasuke departed. The following day, after getting up and yawning, Naruto pulled out some milk and began boiling some water for ramen. When it was all ready, he slurped up about a third of the noodles and was about to take a sip of the mill when some chakra pushed it aside, spilling it. What was that for? Naruto uttered those words. Son, that milk went bad 5 days ago. Yes, we do not want you to become ill during your genin exam. After grinning and nodding, Naruto said, thanks guys. He then leapt out the window and ran in the direction of the field. Sakura began screaming at him as well, but Kakashi ignored her and said, sorry, but a black cat crossed my path, so. Yeah. He was the third person to arrive and was yelled at for being 119 minutes late, but who's counting? Anyway, you 3 must get these bells from me, he said, removing 2 of them. Failure results in a return to the academy for the person who does not receive a bell. He pointed to a tree stump and said, oh yeah, and if you fail, we'll tie you to that stump, and we'll eat lunch in front of you. Sakura cried out, so that's why we couldn't eat breakfast, Naruto sighed. Are you ready? Go. Kakashi simply said. Sakura and Sasuke dashed off, leaving Naruto in the center of the field, looking around. Kakashi raised an eyebrow. Naruto? Do you not intend to hide? I don't see any reason to. Really? You should not allow your opponent to get behind you, Kakashi said behind him. Death for 1,000 years. Poking Naruto in the butt, he screamed. A shadow clone? He thought as Naruto transformed into a cloud of smoke, and then he saw Kiba, yelling and massaging his ass while being launched into the air. What a fucking pervert, he yelled, and Kakashi stood up. Kiba. Sorry, Kakashi-san. Hinata threw a soft fist, but Kakashi spun around to avoid it. Kurenai. Sensei said our test was to find your Icha Icha Paradise book and destroy it. Why don't you ask her out instead of that pink-haired girl? Minato said, seemingly grinning in Naruto's mind. I like that girl, Hinata, already. Naruto shrugged. I never considered doing that kind of thing. Naruto grinned and stealthily approached Kakashi from behind, saying, you shouldn't let your opponents get behind you, Kakashi. Sensei. Kiba and Hinata used their claws and gentle fist to keep Kakashi on the defensive. Shino then stepped out and grabbed Kakashi's book, flipped through it, shuddered, and used his books to shred it apart. Thank you, Naruto-san. He then leapt at Kakashi, grabbed him, and pinned his arms to his sides so he couldn't do any jutsu. After that, he made the shadow clone seal, and all of his clones smashed fists into Kakashi, who fell, unconscious. Yes, thank you, Naruto-kun. Naruto smiled as Hinata nodded. Hinata-chan, don't bring it up. Hinata turned red as he smiled and accepted Kakashi's bells. She thought joyfully, Hinata-chan? He called me Hinata-chan, he called me Hinata-chan, he called me Hinata-chan, and then passed out. Kiba sighed and picked her up. Don't you just pass out around Naruto all the time? He muttered as he left, Shino following closely behind. Later, Naruto was smiling and holding out 2 bells when Kakashi woke up. Well, I have to say something to you guys, Kakashi said. You deserve to be a genin, Naruto. Sakura and Sasuke, you ought to return to the academy. What? Sakura screamed, while Sasuke grunted in anger. Well, the goal of the entire test was to try to beat me by using teamwork, but you didn't use any teamwork at all. However, Sakura appeared devastated, and Kakashi appeared to smile as Naruto actually surprised and defeated her, using teamwork with Kurenai's team. Don't worry, you can both apprentice under someone I know, and if you can pass their tests, you'll be able to be deemed genin. Sakura became alert. Who? A tall, purple-haired woman with a rather large bust was licking a dango and fingering a kunai as Sakura gazed, enthralled with the scene. So, you're the gaki I'm supposed to train, huh? With an insane grin, Anko whispered. Sakura thought, I really hope Sasuke has it better than I do. Sasuke gazed in wonder at the man's numerous wounds, scars, and holes in front of his head. Then Ibiki put his bandana back on. I've been tortured, battered, beaten, and pushed to the point of death, Uchiha. I've had to murder more people than I could count. And I'm going to train you, and if you can survive, you'll be at least Chunin level. With a rare smile, Sasuke nodded. Itachi, this man will assist me in killing you. While strolling alongside Kakashi, Naruto made the decision to ask him a question that had been bothering him for some time. Hey, sensei? Are you going to personally train me? Kakashi turned to Naruto after he stopped sobbing over his book. Naruto arched an eyebrow and said, No, Naruto. I've got something even better. What? When they came to a stop at a barbecue restaurant, Kakashi took over. Naruto paused, and Kakashi pulled him in. Team Kurenai was eating there. Kakashi grinned. So, do you agree, Kurenai? Kurenai grinned. Of course. Naruto grumbled. Of course what? Do you agree what? Tell me, Kurenai chuckled. Kakashi didn't tell you, Team 7 and 8 are combining, so we'll have 2 Jonin, and you 4 Genin. Hinata's gaze expanded. Will Naruto-kun and I be on the same team? Naruto smiled. Alright, this is awesome. The following day. After brushing his teeth and getting up, Naruto joyfully made his way to the training field. He strolled calmly, ignoring the glances he received from the majority of the villagers. He arrived a few minutes ahead of everyone else, with the exception of Shino, who merely gave him a sidelong glance. Then Naruto waited while grinning while sitting beneath a tree. Naruto. Hey! Wake up! As Kiba screamed at him, Naruto woke up with a groan. Akamaru then jumped at him, licking his face and dripping it with saliva, as if he didn't think he was awake. Then, instead of being a cheerful, pleasant cerulean, his eyes became the color of a frozen lake with water visible beneath it. He gave Akamaru a look. With a hint of murderous intent, Minato hissed, Stupid mutt. After yapping, Akamaru ducked behind Kiba. Hey! What the hell did you do to my dog? Naruto's eyes returned to their typical state. He appeared perplexed, or at least more perplexed than usual. He was honest when he said, I don't know what you're talking about. After snarling, Kiba lunged towards Naruto, but Kurenai struck him, causing him to fall to the ground. First, we're teammates, so we shouldn't fight. Second, that was called killing intent, she stated. She looked over at Naruto, which is usually only learned by Chunin level or higher ninja. With an insulted expression, Naruto took a step back. He yelled angrily, Are you saying I'm not Chunin level? Kurenai grinned. These kids are funny. She turned to Hinata and said, He'll definitely be able to make Shino and Hinata a bit happier. She turned back to Naruto and said, He's making Hinata happier just by being on this team. She responded, No, I'm saying I'm surprised. Rewind. Kurenai paused to examine Naruto Uzumaki among all the files on the new Genin. She arched an eyebrow. Low Genin Taijutsu Genjutsu. Not practiced low Genin Ninjutsu. Kenjutsu. Not practiced Genin's intelligence. Control of Chakra. Low Genin level of Chakra. Low Jonin. Kurenai pointed to the Chakra level and said, Hokage. Sama? I think you have a typo here. After examining it, Hiruzen chuckled and uttered. You're right. and proceeded to write something else on the file. Kurenai did it once more. Level of chakra. Mid. Jonin, she began to perspire. Flashback finish. Naruto smiled. Kurenai couldn't resist grinning too. Anyways, we're going to work on chakra control by doing an exercise called tree climbing. Naruto complained, but I can already climb trees at this point. Naruto.kun. I think she means without our hands, because I was already taught how to do that, hesitantly replied Hinata. I was also taught how to use chakra to climb trees, said Shino. Kiba gave a snort. Well, I wasn't. Kurenai grinned. Then, to the surprise of Naruto and Kiba, she approached a tree and began to climb it. Good, then you and Naruto will learn how to. She grinned once more. You have to apply chakra to your feet to walk up the tree. If you use too little, you'll fall. If you use too much, you'll break the tree's bark. Naruto smiled before sprinting toward the tree and leaping at it with both feet. Kurenai's gaze expanded. You have so much chakra on your feet that it's not just visible, it's green. Naruto, don't. For a brief moment, Naruto clung to the tree before it exploded. As he began to make strange noises, Hinata ran towards him and yelled, Naruto.kun. With concern. He wasn't screaming in agony, though. He was giggling. He exclaimed, that was freaking awesome. Kurenai began to perspire. In Naruto's mind, Minato laughed. Well, Naruto, was that something you did intentionally or merely to brag? Why would I intentionally do that? You mentioned that it was fantastic. Yes, it was. Actually, I was somewhat to blame for that. I thought that if I gave Naruto's limbs enough chakra, he would be able to hit harder and the blows would be more painful. We're not trying to destroy the forest, we're trying to climb trees. Hinata turned to face Naruto, who appeared to be struggling with himself. Perhaps he is in a daze due to chakra fatigue. I should check. Byakugan. She let out a gasp. Naruto? She said in a whisper. Naruto gave her a look. What? Naruto swallowed and asked, why do you have 3 different chakras? He needed to think of an excuse quickly. Because I'm just awesome like that, he replied. Good idea, son, you're acting foolish. Thank you, ... Hey. Kurenai was taken aback. Hinata, use your Byakugan to check his 3 chakras then. Hinata suppressed a blush as she swallowed. Well, he has one that is so concentrated it's dark green. That would belong to me, Minato reflected. The second one is a very, very dark blue, which means it is at least Jonin level. Hinata went on. Mine, Naruto thought smugly. Additionally, there is one that is simply blood red. And there's so much that Naruto.kun seems to have a pocket dimension, Hinata cried out. And mine, said Arashi. Kurenai's eyebrows went up, but she said nothing. Well, Naruto, I think I know what your problem is. Mid. Jonin level. Right. More like mid. With an eerie smile, she said, laugh now, Naruto, because we might have to apply a certain chakra inhibiting seal on you to make your chakra control better. You have so much chakra, it's like trying to shoot a whole watermelon out of a garden hose. Alright, do you put it on my stomach? My arm? Later. Why up there? He groaned in his mind as he staggered back to his team, legs close together, clearly in a lot of pain. Minato reprimanded Arashi, who said nothing. Nice going, Arashi. Hinata tried to wave to Naruto as he ascended the hill, but she was aware of his peculiar gait and put her hand down, already aware of the seal's disappearance. Hey, Naruto. The long face. Why? Kiba exclaimed joyfully as Naruto gave him a painful look. He walked to another tree and cautiously tried again, but this time he fell off. Just, don't ask, he muttered. I'm going to take the seal off, Naruto, and I'll be controlling the chakra now rather than Arashi. Thanks, Dad. Naruto felt infinitely better after Arashi snorted as his rear glowed. He then tried again and succeeded in reaching the top, cheering as Kiba boasted that he had climbed a higher tree, and Hinata and Kurenai grinned. Hinata blushed and thought, Naruto, great job. Kurenai grinned as Naruto leapt from the tree and landed on his feet in one hand. Well, that ought to be sufficient training for a single day. What if we all went out for some barbecue? Kurenai said. Kurenai's eye twitched as Kakashi said, sounds great, from behind her. How long have you been here? Darkly, she inquired, and Kakashi shrugged. He said simply, before all of you were. Kurenai then punched him into oblivion, sending him flying. With the exception of Hinata, who seemed a little bashful about sitting next to Naruto, Team 8 sat at a booth, eating and talking cheerfully. Kiba and Naruto appeared to be competing to see who could eat the most without throwing up, but Kiba lost, puked, barely missed Hinata, and hit Shino. Kiba attempted to stutter an apology as Kurenai attacked him and Naruto began howling with laughter, and Hinata gave him a feeble smile as well. Shino sighed, then stood up. I must be leaving, really. Kiba cleared his throat as well. Today, my father will be teaching me a new technique, he said. Kurenai stared at the two as Kakashi entered, stunned, and he fled before Kurenai could respond, saying, yeah, me and Akamaru are gonna be trained by my mom also. Well then, since Kiba and Shino are gone. Hey, Kurenai. Kurenai pivoted, saying, Anko. Why are you here? She inquired, and Anko smiled before grabbing Sakura by the back. She smiled and sat down beside Naruto, squeezing him between her and Hinata, saying, this little Gaki was tired from training, so I decided to bring her here. Here, a kunoichi can't get any sake, she yelled at the waitress. Anko. Sensei. I'm having trouble breathing. Anko spun around and slammed her breasts into Naruto's face, further suffocating him as he choked out. Who is this tiny Gaki? She smiled and withdrew a kunai, then slowly cut Naruto's face and began licking it, tasting the blood and purring. You taste good. Hinata looked at Anko angrily as Kurenai sighed, and then Anko cut Naruto again, near his lip, and began kissing and licking him. Enraged, Hinata was about to use gentle fist on Anko when Kurenai pulled him away. Kurenai said menacingly, Anko. Anko pouted. What? He's cute, you have to admit. He kind of looks like a miniature Yondaime, don't you think? I adore those whisker lines. Kurenai leaned over to look at Naruto's face as she pointed to him. Well, I suppose he kind of looks like Min. Hi, Kurenai. Anko burst out laughing as Kakashi slapped Kurenai on the back and forced her to kiss Naruto, shocking them both. Kurenai. I knew it. Younger boys are appealing to you. She laughed and rolled on the ground, making Kurenai redder than Hinata had ever been. What? Are you serious? I'm not fond of young children, Anko smiled crazily as she stammered. So why did you just give him a kiss? I was pushed by Kakashi. Why can't a Jonin get out of the way of a straightforward push? Kurenai snarled, but Anko grinned pleasantly and said, well, I'm going to leave the Gaki with you for the time being. See you, she said, avoiding the spotlight, and Kurenai turned awkwardly to Naruto as she walked away. She said, sorry, Naruto. He looked away deliberately and mumbled back, yeah, sorry. Give her another kiss. What? Arashi remarked, kiss her again. I could tell she liked it. You are a sick pervert. Well, ask the girl with the pink hair about that Anko if it's not her. She seems like a really interesting person. Hinata turned to face Naruto, who was constantly displaying a range of emotions. Naruto, she thought, as Sakura gazed at him. He kind of looks like the fourth, she thought, and he does kind of look nice, but he doesn't even compare to Sasuke-kun. Shanaru. Inner Sakura cried, and Naruto scratched the back of his head uneasily. Hey Sakura, how are you? Sakura was taken aback when he asked. Yes, but hold on, why didn't you greet me as Sakura-chan? A few people told me some reasons not to like you, Naruto shrugged. Sakura blinked and thought, besides, I can't really see you much, so it's pointless liking you. Naruto's dislike of her was like her disliking Sasuke. She got up and left, pondering Naruto's maturity. Hinata grinned to herself. Yes, she thought, clearing her throat, I know I have a better chance with Naruto. She got up and left the table before turning to face the two, saying, well, we have D-ranked missions tomorrow, so get ready for them. Oh, and Naruto? Naruto swallowed, you might want to get some new clothes and weapons. He said, I don't think I can. Kurenai arched an eyebrow. Why? She inquired. Generally speaking, store owners forbid me from entering their establishments. I only eat ramen because, really, only old man Ichiraku lets me into his ramen shop. Kurenai frowned, then had an idea. She knew Hinata had a crush on Naruto and would kill, or at least seriously hurt, him to spend time with him. All right, you can accompany Hinata. Nobody would dare turn down the heir of the Hyuga clan. She said, well, as long as Hinata agrees. Naruto turned to face Hinata, his eyes as big as a puppy ever. All right, Hinata. He begged, and Naruto smiled. Hinata blushed a little and nodded, not believing her. Excellent. Kurenai grinned and then brushed her lips as they shivered with a phantom tingle as he rushed out of the restaurant, grabbing Hinata's hand and dragging her around. Where should we go, Hinata, to acquire clothing and weapons? Naruto inquired. With his eyes a deeper shade of blue from the night's shadows, Naruto turned to face her and said, well, I usually buy weapons at Tenten Sans parents' shop. Excellent, take the lead, he said, and Hinata nodded, hurrying to be ahead of Naruto so he wouldn't notice her flush. They walked for a minute or so before they reached a small-looking store with a few lights on. Naruto entered and looked around, finding a variety of weapons and blades of all kinds on each wall. He was amazed and attempted to touch a sword tip. "Avoid touching that." Naruto turned as a girl yelled and grabbed his wrist. "Who are you?" he inquired. "My name is Tenten," she said, and Naruto gave her a look. Tenten's eye twitched. "Well then Panda-chan, I need to buy some shuriken and kunai." "Panda-chan?" she asked, reaching out to choke Naruto, but he ducked to examine the sword. "Whoa, this is fantastic. Was this made by your parents?" Tenten blinked as he asked. She said, "Actually, I did." Naruto's smile widened even more. "Whoa. Did you really make this amazing sword?" His finger was cut, and he winced a little as he asked, feeling the edge. Tenten snatched a bandage from the counter and said, "I'll get a bandage for that." She then took Naruto's hand and raised her eyebrows, saying, "The cut. It's gone." She cried out, and Naruto glanced at his finger. "Oh, it must be. Arashi. Why did you heal it so quickly?" "Take care of it. I felt like it. Well, anyways, I need some shuriken and kunai." Naruto sighed and turned to Tenten, who nodded before grabbing 2 boxes and giving them to Naruto. She said, "That'll be 80 ryo." Naruto nodded and gave her some coins. "Thanks." Naruto grinned before leaving the room with Hinata. "Alright, Panda-chan, see you later," he said joyfully, and Tenten grinned and nodded. Later, following Naruto's visit to the clothes store. "Well, thanks Hinata-chan," Naruto said as he left the store with the weapon boxes and a few bags of clothing. After saying goodbye and giving her a hug, he turned away from Hinata, blushing as his eyes turned icy blue and he shunned her. "Hinata-chan?" she thought joyfully as she hurried home. When Naruto finally made it to his apartment, he staggered around and was horrified to see graffiti that read, "Die, demon," and "We'll kill you one day." Minato frowned. He muttered, "Damn villagers. Anyway, get ready to stay up late because I'm going to teach you the Shunshin," Naruto moaned. The following day, on a field, Kurenai, Kiba, Shino, and Hinata were training. Kiba was sparring Shino, and losing, while Kurenai was teaching Hinata how to walk on water. Suddenly, Naruto shunshined over to them, looking very exhausted. "Dude, what did you do last night?" Kiba remarked, gesturing to Naruto's weary, bloodshot eyes. Hinata was staring at Naruto when he muttered, "I learned Shunshin no Jutsu." She had no idea what clothes Naruto had chosen until then, but she had to admit that they looked incredibly attractive. Naruto was dressed in a long, sleeved black cloak with a hood, a burnt orange and white shirt underneath, and black and orange pants. The cloak featured a red and orange flame. Or perhaps it was a wave design, along with the kanji for Naruto, or Maelstrom. There was also a small red spiral on the back. Hinata kept staring at him, utterly oblivious to Kurenai's words, and the clothing also emphasized how Minato's merging with him had made his face more angular and his hair a little longer. "Hinata? Hinata?" Kurenai turned to Naruto and remarked, "Wow, he really does resemble the Yondaime," thinking absently. "I would absolutely want to be his girlfriend if he were my age. Did I just think what I believe I did?" After that, Naruto made his way to Kakashi and the 2 kunoichi. "So, what's our first mission, Kakashi Sensei?" "We're doing a whole bunch of D-ranked missions, like painting, gardening, and catching a certain cat called Tora." Kakashi responded. Naruto let out a moan. "D-ranked missions? Those are lame. At least let us do a C-ranked," he moaned. Kakashi let out a sigh. "Naruto, as new genin, you can only do D-ranked missions, and they are useful for training, and don't have any chance of hurting you." Sighing, Naruto nodded and said, "Well, when do we start?" Kiba screamed, "Get this damn monster off of me," as Tora attacked him and Akamaru with vicious bites. As Tora jumped into Hinata's arms and began purring, Hinata chuckled a little. Shino said, "Kiba, you do realize you were just beaten in combat by a cat, right?" Naruto smiled. "I believe I could adjust to missions with a D ranking." Naruto was getting a little bored, to be honest, even though he and his team had finished a lot of D-ranked missions in the previous 2 weeks. "Okay, I'm bored to death." He let out a sigh as he observed his group and his shadow clones painting a dilapidated structure. "Okay guys, start painting," Naruto said after taking a quick look around and creating more shadow clones. A shadow clone gave a snort. He declared, "You aren't the boss of us." Naruto's eyebrow went up. They are not your slaves, son, they're your clones. They're just like you, Minato said. Oh. He cleared his throat, Naruto. The clones exchanged glances before nodding. Guys, let's just paint the thing, so we can get a better mission. They all grabbed paintbrushes, and the entire space was completed in 15 minutes. After smiling, Naruto spelled out every clone. Hey guys, can we go and get another mission now? With a sigh, Kurenai gestured toward the structure. That had tons of bubbles, dripping spots, bare spots, and we were told to do a double coat. We're going to have to start over. What, after 4 hours? The 6, Kurenai, Shino, Hinata, Kiba, Kakashi, and Naruto, finally finished and made their way to the Hokage's office. Hiruzen grinned. He said, "Ah, you're done?" He handed them a stack of bills that he had taken out. Then he grinned. He took out a file and said, "We have another mission available, you know. How about retrieving Tora again?" Kiba yelled, "Hell no, I am not getting that insane cat again." Kurenai sighed, "We want a higher ranked mission. We are only rookies, we can only do D ranked." Hiruzen began, "Well, actually, I have a C ranked mission." Kiba exclaimed with joy, "We'll take it, and a low B ranked." Kakashi and Kurenai exchanged glances. Kakashi inquired, "What are the C and B ranks descriptions?" Hiruzen made changes to his documents. Kurenai arched an eyebrow and said, "Well, the B-ranked mission is a delivery mission, and the C-ranked mission is an escort to Wave." She questioned, "A delivery mission? From where?" Hiruzen gave a feeble smile. "The Dango shop." Kiba appeared perplexed, and Kurenai developed a horrified expression, with Akamaru growling. Kiba questioned, "The Dango shop? In this village? Why is that a B-ranked mission?" The third said, "Well, if you accept the mission, you'll learn." Kiba smiled. He yelled, "We'll take it," and grabbed the file before Kurenai could stop him. With regret, Hiruzen grinned. He tried to warn the child by saying, "Well, I want 1 stick of Anko-flavored dango, 1 stick of Mitarashi flavor, and 1 chadango." "Yes, I got those from Wikipedia." Kiba didn't even notice, though. Kiba joyfully exclaimed, "Well, let's go," and moved forward, until he struck a pole with his head. Carefully avoiding him, Naruto picked up the file and went outside. The others came soon after. Naruto inquired, "So, where is the dango shop?" Kakashi remarked, "Well, there is the one right next to here." A sizable dango store caught Naruto's attention. "Are you kidding me? There's a dango shop right here, and it's a B-ranked mission to retrieve some dango," replied Naruto. Then he barged in and gave the order for the dango. He left the store after receiving it. He surveyed the area. Seriously, there's no danger he. Dango. Anko tried to seize the dango after tackling Naruto to the ground. Naruto swore as a stick of dango brushed his face, scratching it until blood came out. "Hey! This is for the Hokage," he exclaimed. Kurenai cried out, "Oh no!" Naruto started bleeding. Kakashi said, a little amused, "What's wrong? He can heal way faster than any of us, and it's not even a deep scratch." Kurenai gazed at him as if he had just revealed that he was a lesbian girl. "Let me rephrase that. He is bleeding, while holding dango, around Anko," she yelled. Kakashi went pale. "Oh crap." After licking her lips uncannily, Anko withdrew a kunai and lowered it gradually toward Naruto's face. After swallowing, Naruto flickered and disappeared. Anko stood up straight and looked around. She yelled, "Where is that kid?" Hinata gave Anko, who was yelling and brandishing a kunai, a shy glance. Kiba laughed, "Damn, Naruto is lucky. Actually, Anko Senpai is in the torture and interrogation department of Anbu, and is known for being rather sadistic and morbid, so I feel somewhat sorry for Naruto-san," Shino said quietly. Kiba took a swallow. "So, you're saying that she is a crazy lunatic torturer that is interested in Naruto?" "Basically." Kiba smiled. "Kinky." Kurenai then struck him in the head. Kiba began to laugh before Hinata struck him. "This is serious. This mission can now be considered an A-ranked, at least, for whoever is holding the dango, which is currently Naruto." She barely stammered, "Don't laugh, Naruto-kun might be seriously hurt." Kiba gave his head a gentle rub. "Geez. Just because I laughed a little BT about your boyfriend doesn't mean you have to hit me," he grumbled. Hinata reddened and eeped. With Naruto. Naruto had a kunai in his hand as he crouched behind a tree. Having listened to the entire exchange, he questioned Kiba's decision to refer to him as Hinata's boyfriend. Minato remarked, "I feel like Hinata-san likes you, Naruto. She's always fainting or blushing when she's around you, touches you, or talks to you, and Kiba did call you her boyfriend. Yeah, kid, you should ask her out, cheerfully and foolishly exclaimed Arashi. Well, I suppose. Gaki, you're here. He started running up the tree, and Anko jumped towards him, grabbing him in a bear hug and pushing her breasts in Naruto's face before pulling out a kunai and grinning evilly. Let go of me. Naruto flipped backwards, avoiding a kunai aimed at his face as Anko charged at him, her coat flapping in the breeze, exposing her rather large assets. Naruto let out a scream. Oh, come on, Anko pouted. Almost any boy your age would aspire to be in your shoes. Naruto writhed uncomfortably in her grasp as she licked his face. Anko laughed as Naruto remarked, I get the feeling he's gay, except maybe Sasuke. As she tightened her hold on the kunai and gently stroked Naruto's face with its dull side, she whispered, well, almost all guys. She then turned to the blade and brought it down. Naruto-kun must not be touched. Anko turned in shock, but Hinata's gentle fist struck her 4 times in quick succession, causing her to fall. She looked at Hinata, who growled and coughed up blood, before grinning and saying, all right, Gaki. I'll see you later. Naruto shuddered as she said, idly pushing aside a jacket flap. Naruto panted and then embraced Hinata, to her surprise and delight. Thank you, Hinata. Chan. He said, and Hinata nodded weakly, trying not to faint, before the two shunshined to the rest of their team. I hope not. Anko simply winked at him before laughing and shining away. Are you okay? Kurenai yelled as she grabbed Naruto and examined him thoroughly for wounds. Kurenai. Sensei, I'm all right. As Kakashi cleared his throat, Kurenai nodded, realized she had touched Naruto, and looked away nervously. Naruto said, a little uneasy. He said, well, let's deliver the dango to the Hokage then. Naruto nodded and began to ascend the stairs to the Hokage's office, with the others following shortly after. Here's the dango. Then, Naruto happily said. Hiruzen chuckled, then handed them each a check. Naruto looked at it. Naruto, it's a check. Cash payments are not accepted for higher-ranked missions. Naruto nodded, then opened his mouth to say something before shutting it. So, you'll have to open a new account in a bank. What's wrong, Naruto? Hiruzen inquired. Naruto said sadly, well, I don't know how to, and, well, I doubt the bank will even let me in. Kurenai was furious inside and was about to respond when Hinata interrupted. She said, well, Naruto-kun, I could help you. Naruto smiled. Fantastic. Regards, Hinata. Naruto exclaimed with joy, and Hinata grinned back. Kurenai grinned and thought, this is fantastic. Hinata and Naruto will go to the bank, talk, and possibly flirt a little before becoming close friends and eventually a boyfriend and girlfriend. They will live happily ever after. Sama Hokage. Is it possible for us to accept the C-ranked mission as well? Kiba glanced at Kakashi, who remarked, after all, the only injury that resulted from a B-ranked mission was a scratched cheek for Naruto, and that has already healed due to him. By him, I meant. A medic.nin friend of his, Kakashi swallowed. Shino didn't believe him when he said that. All right. Akamaru barked as Kiba spoke, and Kakashi let out a breath he was unaware he had been holding. In any case, tomorrow you can accept the C-ranked mission. I hope you get a good night's sleep. But it's not even 6. Naruto uttered, causing Hiruzen to perspire. He said haltingly, oh. Well, don't you need to visit the bank? Naruto laughed as he demanded. All right, Grandpa, see you. Hiruzen grinned and then sighed as he shouted, pulling Hinata along with him as he ran, followed by the rest of his team. He felt the bags under his drained, lifeless eyes and the numerous deep wrinkles in front of him as he looked in the mirror and thought, I really need a replacement. After exiting the Hokage Tower with Hinata, Naruto turned and smiled, saying, all right, let's go, he said as he began to run. Naruto? Shyly, Hinata said, the bank is the other way. Naruto turned slowly. He said, I knew that. Hinata grinned and turned to walk in the opposite direction, but Naruto followed her only to find her frozen. Naruto met her eyes and said, Hinata. Chan? Is there a problem? Naruto asked, raising an eyebrow and waving a hand in front of her eyes before turning to see what she was staring at. Hinata nodded as the girl, who appeared to be a miniature Hinata with longer hair and a thinner face, approached her. Hiyashi. Sama requested to see you, Hinata. Yes, Hanabi. Imouto. I have told you numerous times to refer to me as Hanabi-san, Hanabi snapped. Imouto. I had no idea you had a younger sister, Hinata. Hanabi simply took Hinata's hand and yanked her roughly along as Naruto exclaimed with joy. "Hinata, come now." Hanabi said coldly, "You have no time to spare for these commoners." Naruto snarled. "Hey, I am the future Hokage and the best ninja in history, so I am not a commoner." Hanabi turned to face Naruto, her white eyes lifeless as he screamed. "I don't think so," she said simply and icily, "you're pathetic, weak, and useless. Just like Hinata." Naruto simply stared at her back as she began to leave, but then his eyes changed color. One icy blue, the other fiery red. "Take that back." Hanabi turned in awe as Naruto, Minato, Arashi yelled, displaying all three of his chakras to the fullest extent possible. Hanabi wondered, what is this power? Naruto created thousands of shadow clones. "I'm sorry." Hanabi began to slowly back away as Naruto screamed, but then a strange chakra appeared in his hand and began to spin quickly. Then it changed into a sphere, but it was uncontrollable, releasing jets of sheer chakra and rings, and Hanabi recognized it at once. As she looked at Naruto's face and cloak, she thought, what if he was related to the fourth? A Rasengan, the A-ranked jutsu created by the fourth Hokage. But how could he have learned such a jutsu? Father will want to know about this. "All right, I apologize," Naruto snarled as Hanabi spoke. "I don't mind if you make fun of me. Just say sorry to Hinata." Given that the chakra emanating from Naruto was sufficient to shatter the asphalt of the street they were on and break the windows of surrounding buildings, Hanabi chose to follow his instructions when he yelled, pointing to Hinata, who was cowering in terror. Hanabi turned to face Hinata and said softly, "I'm sorry, Hinata." Hinata nodded and swallowed, and Naruto grinned before losing consciousness. Later, with a moan, Naruto slowly stood up and turned to see that he was in his apartment. A voice handed him a plate of food and said, "Here, Naruto." Naruto smiled. "Many thanks." He began to eat. The voice laughed and then drew some blinds to illuminate the dark room. Naruto turned to face the as-yet unidentified individual. "Well, Naruto, while you were unconscious, I got Kakashi Senpai to take you home, and I made an account for you." She handed Naruto a card, saying, "This has all of the information you need to know." Naruto smiled even more, and to her surprise, he gave Kurenai a hug. "Kurenai. Sensei, thank you," he said joyfully, and Kurenai grinned. She stood up and waved goodbye, saying, "You're welcome, Naru-kun. Well, get up early for our next mission, okay?" She questioned, and Naruto grinned and nodded angrily. Kurenai grinned back, then gripped her head and groaned as she shut the apartment door. As she started down the hallway, she thought, "I just called my pupil Naru-kun. I really need to get a boyfriend," she said. "Interesting. Are you suggesting that the boy might be descended from the Yondaime?" "Well, Hiyashi Sama, he used the Rasengan, which isn't in any scroll and was only known to the Yondaime. Additionally, Hiyashi Sama possessed 3 chakras, which may indicate a family line." "What do you suggest we do, Hanabi?" asked Hiyashi as he gazed thoughtfully into the distance. Hanabi blinked. "Father is seeking my input," she pondered. "Well, Hiyashi Sama, if having 3 chakras is a bloodline, it would be useful to integrate him into our clan, as if we had larger chakra reserves, and the Byakugan, we could become the most powerful clan in all of the known world." "Well then, I'm going to try to convince Hinata to seduce him, and try to arrange a political marriage," Hiyashi said after giving a thoughtful nod and standing up. "That is excellent, Hiyashi Sama, as she is not only in his age group, but also happens to be affectionate towards Naruto-san. That will make it all the easier." Hiyashi grinned, then furrowed his brows. "Naturally, Hanabi, you know that if Hinata fails, I am counting on you to fulfill the mission I will be giving her for her." An unexpected smile appeared on Hanabi's face as she nodded and said, "Naturally." After waking up, Naruto decided to go get some ramen because he was feeling a little peckish. "Shunshin no jutsu," he shouted. "Hey, you know, some people are trying to fall asleep." "I apologize, sir," Naruto shouted to his landlord, "Jutsu no Shunshin." Shunting to Ichiraku's, Naruto muttered. Ayame was cleaning the counter distractedly when she looked at the clock and sighed, thinking, "I wonder where Naruto is. I haven't seen him in a while. It's about time to open." "Hi, Ayame." After screaming and leaping into the air, Ayame's eyes widened as she turned to face the person who had said it. "Naruto?" She exhaled because Naruto was taller, had lost most of his baby fat, had more muscle, and had longer hair that hung over his hide. She continued to stare at him until he snapped his fingers in front of her. "Ayame-chan, are you okay?" he asked, and Ayame nodded in surprise. Well, Naruto, what will you have? She said, and Naruto smiled. I'm going to have 5 large beef ramens and 7 large miso ramens. Ayame broke out in a sweat. Yeah, that's Naruto all right, she thought as she made her way back into the store, grabbed all the bowls, and stumbled as she approached Naruto slowly. Jutsu Shadow Clone. Ayame blinked, and Naruto's clones caught all the bowls after catching her. Naruto smiled, saying, that was close, huh Ayame-chan. When Ayame realized she was in Naruto's arms, she blushed after smiling. Minato thought, you're going to have a harem soon, son. Do you realize how many girls are attracted to you? After a few minutes of Ayame staring at him in confusion, Naruto released Ayame and his clones carried all the bowls to the table, where Naruto began to eat them all. So, Naruto, you've really matured, haven't you? She inquired, attempting to ascertain the reason behind his development. Naruto smiled. Yes, he cried out. So, what has kept you away? She inquired, and Naruto shrugged. You know, missions, training, ninja stuff. Naruto smiled, and I'm going on another mission today, a C-ranked. Ayame nodded. Ayame's gaze expanded. Circa ranked. However, don't new genins only receive missions with a D ranking? She inquired, and Naruto's smile widened even more. Yeah, but we get higher ranked missions because my team is amazing. Once upon a time, Ayame had wished she could have become a ninja, but she was unable to do so due to an unfortunate condition similar to Lee's. Naruto then glanced at the clock. Ayame smiled wistfully. Well, I have to leave. Ayame, see you. A crumpled stack of bills was left behind as Naruto yelled, keep the change. Before sorting the bills in the cash register, Ayame picked them up. Naruto, Ayame pondered. Hokage Tower. Kurenai thought impatiently, Naruto. Then a figure in a long black cloak with orange and red, well, you know, bounced through the door. Kakashi sighed as Naruto casually said, sorry, I'm late. Well Naruto, we have a C-ranked escort mission to wave. Excited, Kiba said. Who are we escorting? A princess? A movie star? Well, this mission would most likely receive a B-ranked rating if we were. After Naruto finished speaking, a man with a gray beard, slightly tattered clothing, thick glasses, and a nearly empty sake bottle entered the room and looked around with bloodshot eyes. All right, so I have 2 young girls, a strange guy with a dog, and a runt with bugs everywhere. You two must be the Jonin, right? Oh yeah, and I'm Tazuna, he said, holding out a hand to Kakashi and Naruto, who looked at each other. Naruto calmly remarked, and I'm a genin. The woman standing next to me is the other Jonin. After taking a few steps back, cleaning his glasses, and taking another look, Tazuna said flatly, oh. He then left the Hokage office, leaving the others to follow him. Hiruzen thought, good luck, Naruto. You might just need it. Later, it was a sweltering day with not a cloud in the sky, and Naruto and his group were strolling slowly down the road with Tazuna, scanning the area for any dangers. Naruto glanced ahead at the road and then signaled the others to stop. Guys? Yes. Why is there a puddle in the middle of the road on a day like today? Pointed Naruto. He hurled a shuriken at it after that. With his father's assistance, a water-made hand snatched the shuriken and threw it back at Naruto, who kicked it aside. He gave it a strange look as the puddle split into 2 men, and Kakashi's eye narrowed. The Demon Brothers. A gauntlet on one of the brothers' hands shredded him in an instant, and he grinned. 2B ranked missing. Nins. Get the woman, Guzu. Guzo grinned under a mask as one person said, don't hurt her, though, we might be able to sell her to some brothel. He ran to Kurenai and whispered, all right, Maizu. Maizu ran towards Kiba and Shino and yelled, while you're at it, get the girl too. Guzo sprang at Kurenai, threateningly swinging his gauntlet. Kurenai tried to move, but to her horror, she was restrained by metal wire. She attempted to get some seals to perform a genjutsu quickly, but Guzu was too close, so she closed her eyes and screamed. She opened her eyes when she heard a piercing scream too, and saw that Naruto had kicked Guzu in the shin hard enough to break it, then punched him in the nose hard enough to break it. Guzu's nose, not Naruto's, spun to a stop on the ground, then ran at Guzu again, continuing to batter him and let him skid off the ground before letting him go and running at Maizu, who was obviously going to beat Kiba and Shino. Hey, horrible. When Kiba and Maizu looked at the same time, Naruto, who was under the influence of Minato, grabbed Maizu and flipped him into the air. He then created some shadow clones, which began kicking him into the air and jumping off of each other to continue battering him until they were more than 200 feet in the air. All of the clones then grabbed Maizu and began spinning in midair, moving at an incredible speed towards the ground. Barrage of Naruto Namikaze. After Naruto shouted, the group of people painfully collided with the ground, and all of the clones dispersed, leaving Maizu unconscious and bleeding. Holy shit. Naruto's head whirled around, and his eyes returned to normal as he grinned in relief. Kakashi. I assumed you were no longer alive, he said, and Kakashi grinned. It was a substitute. Naruto grinned as Kakashi remarked, a man who can master the Academy 3 is a better ninja than someone who can use 100s ranked techniques badly. And you can do both, no doubt. Hey. We believed you to be dead, Kiba yelled, and Kakashi chuckled. Well, a Jonin like me doesn't die that easily, he replied. Naruto? Hinata asked shyly, and Naruto turned to smile at her. Hinata. Chan, what? He inquired. Well, tell me why you mentioned Naruto Namikaze Barrage, she said, and Naruto swallowed and went pale. Trying to come up with an explanation, he muttered, well, it's just that the fourth was a hero of mine. He pleaded with her to buy that, but she didn't. Why, Naruto, would you have chosen the name Naruto Namikaze Barrage over Minato Namikaze Barrage? She inquired, and as Kiba joined him in their attack, Naruto slowly withdrew. Yes, but why did you give it that name? Kiba uttered those words, and Naruto stammered out a response before Kakashi spoke up. Those two really attacked us. Tazuna.san. This mission is therefore at least B ranked. Why did you only pay for a mission with a C ranking? Tazuna collapsed to the ground. You see, a shipping tycoon named Gadu has robbed my country, and we have virtually no money left, not even to build the bridge I'm supposed to build there so that goods can be shipped into our country without Gadu noticing. A B or higher mission was out of my price range. Please help us, he pleaded. Walking over to Tazuna, Naruto helped him up, saying, we'll definitely help. He smiled and said, until we complete this mission, I don't want to return to Konoha. Thank you. Tazuna said softly as his tear-filled eyes met Naruto's, who grinned and helped him up. All right, let's go. Kakashi remained standing there, suspicious, while Kurenai sighed and followed the genin as he crowed. B or higher? He asked himself, later. Naruto and his group were riding in silence on a small boat toward a partially constructed bridge when they entered a small village and got off. Yeah, it's misty here, huh? When the group entered a forest and Tazuna began shouting that they needed to go to his house right away, Naruto looked around before Arashi took control and threw a kunai, pinning a small rabbit, which he then picked up and examined. Why did you force me to do that? He inquired. Not only is the rabbit meat delicious, but it's also white. Why would a rabbit be white in the middle of spring? Unless it's a trap. Just as a huge blade swung at their heads and lodged itself in a wall, Naruto screamed and threw Hinata to the ground. Naruto glared up, and Kakashi's eye widened. He inhaled, Zabuza Momochi. Naruto smiled. Who is he? Still standing atop a flushed Hinata, he inquired as Kakashi prepared a kunai. He is a Kuragakure missing 9 with a S ranking. Kakashi put a hand to his Hite.8 and said, don't try to fight him. Only Kurenai and I have a chance of beating him. And I will only have a chance of beating him using this. And a Sharingan appeared when he lifted the forehead protector. Oh, Kakashi, I already get to see your Sharingan? Zabuza made some seals and whispered, I'm honored. Hidden mist technique. Kakashi took a step back and said, keep Tazuna safe. He is most likely his target, he shouted, and then the area was once more shrouded in a dense, white fog. Zabuza heard some laughter as he was walking quietly in Kakashi's direction. All right, Dad, Jutsu Shadow Clone. His mist was briefly blown away, and he saw the boy standing next to a blonde man, and he thought, that voice was from the blonde boy, so he can use shadow clones, meaning he has relatively high chakra reserves. It's impossible, he thought, but he released the jutsu just to be sure. His mouth fell open. With 3 triple-pronged kunai in each hand, Minato Namikaze stood next to the boy and gazed ominously at Zabuza, asking, why were you attacking my son and his team? Minato said softly, and Zabuza took a step back after swallowing. He quickly made some seals, thinking, oh shish, I was attacking the son of the strongest Konoha ninja ever. Water Dragon no Jutsu. Perhaps that will divert his attention long enough for him to flee. Minato merely thrust his hand into the dragon, causing it to explode. Zabuza staggered back, thinking, oh boy, and proceeded to make more seals. A magnificent waterfall. Haku, where are you? He cried, sending water flying in Minato's direction. Minato backhand slapped the water, causing it to fall apart, and Zabuza staggered back. Then he had an idea. No jutsu, water prison. he shouted, and then a sphere of water covered everyone except Minato, Naruto, and Tazuna. Minato sighed and threw the kunai backwards without even looking at them, and in a matter of seconds, they were all set free. In a panic, Zabuza thought, "Damn Hiroshin." Minato approached Zabuza at a leisurely pace. He whispered, "I'm afraid it's time for you to die." Then a needle struck Zabuza in the neck as it flew through the air. The body was grabbed by a figure that leapt down. The ninja whispered, "There is no need, Yondaime Sama, but thank you very much for weakening him for me." Minato acknowledged. Hunter.nin. The Hunter.nin then disappeared. Minato stared at Naruto for a few moments after he passed out. It appears that the Hiroshin exhausted him. "Well, Naruto, get a good night's sleep." Then he suddenly appeared. With a groan, Naruto awoke to find his cloak gone and bandages wrapped around him. He noticed that the other members of his team were observing him closely. Naruto said feebly, "What?" Hinata raised her voice. She said in a whisper, "Well, Naruto-kun, Kakashi. Sensei told us that you summoned the Yondaime Hokage, who used a technique only he knew. It was Kakashi's turn." Naruto, "Just tell us the truth, alright? I already know, but the others might as well." Kakashi responded. Naruto let out a sigh. "Well guys, you see, I'm kind of the Mom? Who are those guys?" A short boy with a hat pointed at Naruto and the other ninja as he turned. Beside him, a woman grinned. "They are some strong ninja here to help Grandpa, Inari," she replied. Inari let out a sigh. He said somberly, "You know they are going to die, right?" Akamaru yipped, and Kiba snarled. "Oh yeah, you little squirt. We're the greatest ninja ever," he yelled. Inari gave a snort. He said, "Right," and turned to leave. Naruto appeared intrigued, but Kiba muttered something. He said to the woman, "Ma'am, why is he like? Well, that?" Gazing at a picture on a wall, she let out a sigh. "Well, you see, he used to have a surrogate father a while ago, called Kaiza," she said with sadness. She touched the poster with her fingers. "He was a great man, and Inari was so happy around him, but one day, She wiped away a tear as she sniffed, and Tazuna went on. "He was put to death by Gadu," he said. Shino appeared somewhat troubled by the news, and Hinata's eyes were watering at the story. Kiba also appeared profoundly moved. As Kiba put it, "Isn't that terrible, Naruto?" He turned when no one answered. "Naruto?" Inari was sobbing and crying in his room. He sobbed, "Kaiza. Dad." Then he tensed up when he felt a hand on his shoulder. He turned slowly and saw Naruto staring at him with a sorrowful expression. He said sadly, "Hey." Inari whirled around. Naruto remained quiet for a while. He said, "I know how you feel." Angrily, Inari turned back to him. He yelled, "You have no idea how I feel, nobody does." Naruto gave him a look. "Really, you lost your dad, but you have your mom and grandpa," he replied. He raised his gaze to the sky. He raised his shirt and shaped some chakra, saying, "I had nobody. I was an orphan. And to make things worse, I was hurt by all of the villagers, let into almost no stores, and it was all because of something I couldn't control." With a gesture toward the seal on his stomach, Naruto exclaimed, "You see this?" Inari shuddered, avoiding Naruto's eyes as he might be upset and want to vent his rage on her. "This holds the nine-tailed fox, the strongest demon in existence. Everyone hated me for it," Inari said. It was Naruto who said, "Look at me." After shivering, Inari met Naruto's gaze. He was surprised to see how happy and compassionate they were. "But then, I found friends, and kept trying to be a great ninja. And even though I can't see him, I know who my dad is, and I learned that the Kyuubi is actually a really nice guy." He laughed. "Inari, I found people precious to me, and I want to protect them, no matter what, even if I have to be sacrificed and give up my dream of being Hokage, I will always protect them," said he. Shocked, Inari wiped away a few tears. He thought, "That sounds almost like what Dad said." Then Naruto grinned once more. He said, "All right, Otuto?" Inari became quiet. He then gave Naruto a hug. With a smile, Inari added, "Yeah, Ani." After grinning, Naruto ushered Inari downstairs. Naruto smiled at every one of them. "Come on guys. If we're gonna beat Zabuza again, we have to train harder," he exclaimed. Kurenai let out a sigh. "All right then. We'll work on another useful exercise that improves chakra control." Naruto smiled. "All right," he said. "See you later, Inari." "Otuto," he exclaimed, avoiding the spotlight. Kurenai got the others to follow her outside after grinning. She began to perspire. Naruto, was it really necessary to use Shunshin no Jutsu just to get out of their house? She responded. Naruto raised his eyebrows and said, that jutsu can use a lot of chakra. It can? He inquired. Then Kurenai recalled. Well, for people with average chakra reserves, yes. Now, Hinata, grab onto Naruto's hand, Shino, grab mine, and Kiba, grab Kakashi's. We're going to Shunshin to that nearby lake, she said. Hinata blushed a little when Naruto nodded, and then she took Naruto's hand. She recalled her father's words as she gazed up at the sky. Rewind. According to Hinata, se.say.say.se. Hiyashi finished, seduce. He gave Hinata a stern look. You are capable of doing this, correct? Said he. Hinata gave a nervous nod. Of course, Hiyashi. Sama. Flashback finish. They all materialized at the lake as Hinata was contemplating that memory and how to achieve it. Kurenai handed out some papers and turned to face each of them. I need you to channel your chakra into these papers. She replied. After obtaining the papers, the genin used their chakra. As they looked at their papers, Shino crumpled up, Hinata got wet, Kiba crumpled to dust, and Naruto split into two. Well Shino, you're in luck, because Kakashi is also a lightning affinity, she laughed. She approached Hinata. Hinata, we're right next to a lake, so you can easily use your new water affinity, which Kakashi also has knowledge of. To get to Kiba, she walked. She said, Kakashi knows some earth jutsu. Next, she glanced at Naruto's. Naruto, you seem to have a wind affinity, and Kakashi can't use wind jutsu, and neither can I, she replied. Naruto appeared devastated. Don't feel bad, son, I can teach you hands on wind jutsu because I know it, Minato said. Naruto smiled. I'm grateful, Dad, he thought. Then he turned to Kurenai. So, sensei, what am I supposed to do? Well, Shino and Hinata already know it, so you and Kiba are going to learn water walking, she replied. Kiba chuckled. Actually, I know water walking. It was one of the things my dad taught me before he left. Naruto gave him a look. He inquired, your parents had a divorce? Kiba gave a snort. Naruto shuddered and said, no, my mom scared my dad away. Good Naruto, you're really grasping it, exclaimed a Kakashi clone. Kakashi laughed when Naruto muttered something that was forbidden in this T-rated fanfiction. While another clone was conversing with Kiba and demonstrating the inner decapitation technique, the real Kakashi was working on teaching Shino how to control the lightning chakra. Hinata was speaking to Kurenai. Hinata, because you have very good chakra control, I'm planning on making you a genjutsu specialist, she replied. After blinking, Hinata gave a small smile. Kurenai interrupted, yes sensei. However, I am also going to get Kakashi to teach you a few water ninjutsu, just in case you fight someone who can break genjutsu easily. Hinata nodded once more. Then she said something in a whisper. Kurenai said, what was that, Hinata? Nervously, Hinata pressed her index fingers together. She questioned, well, who is going to teach Naruto-kun? Kurenai gave a pitiful smile. Kurenai uttered the uncertain words, I'm sure you will find some way to learn wind ninjutsu. His father was speaking to Naruto after he had just fled to a remote area of the forest. Okay, son, Minato said, I want you to channel chakra through a kunai. That's what Naruto did. Minato grinned. Now, grind your chakras together to create a wind chakra with a sharp edge. When Naruto did that, the kunai began to glow blue. Now, slash at that tree from a distance of about 1 inch. With a swing of the kunai, he said, okay. Then a cut was made into the tree, 2 or 3 inches deep. They'll only attempt to avoid it by an inch or so, but they'll still get cut because your chakra lengthens and sharpens the blade, making it suitable for a surprise attack. Naruto grinned. So is that the jutsu you were going to teach me? He inquired. No, all elements are capable of doing that. Verdant Mountain's Violent Wind is a jutsu that I will teach you, Naruto smiled. Does that resemble launching a massive air blast at someone? No, it's known as Great Breakthrough. Does it use a wind blade of some sort to cut them in half? No, that's the wind cutter or blade of wind. Does it shoot some bullet of wind that tears them to shreds? Minato roared. Will you let me tell you what the jutsu does? He sighed. Verdant Mountain's Violent Wind lets you throw shuriken and kunai without touching them. For instance, if you threw a bunch of shuriken at someone and they all missed, you could use it to shoot them all back at him or her, from different angles, and at different speeds, and you wouldn't have to touch them. Naruto smiled. Fantastic. He scampered. But it takes good chakra control, better than you have now. But I know how to improve your chakra control a whole ton, said Naruto, looking devastated. With a smile, Naruto said, how dad? Strolling up a cascade, gazing up at the summit of a massive waterfall, Naruto screamed. Yes, it should give you high Chunin, possibly low Jonin Chakra control because it combines walking on water with tree climbing and requires you to instantly adjust if you step on a rock or if the current gets stronger. It also makes it more difficult because you are vertical. Naruto complained, then ran toward the waterfall and attempted to place his feet on it, falling and getting wet. Then he sighed, undressed, and tried again, managing to get one foot on for a brief moment before growling, jumping up, applying chakra to his feet, and taking a cautious step forward. He realized that climbing a waterfall was difficult because you had to constantly shift your chakra due to the shifting water. He climbed out of the pool, soaked, tried again, and again, took another step, fell again, and yelled. He fought for 10 minutes, got halfway, pumped his fist in the air in celebration, and then fell. Naruto. Later on, somewhere. A girl was picking up some plants when she turned to face Naruto, who moaned softly and woke up quickly, his head darting around. Naruto saw that the girl was very attractive. Oh, so you're awake at last? Okay, would you please pass that blue plant to me? Softly but cheerfully, she said, and Naruto turned his head before picking up the plant from the ground and giving it to the girl. What is your name, then? She said, and Naruto grinned. Uzumaki Naruto. Which is yours? He inquired. The girl whispered, Haku. Naruto grinned, and Haku glanced at his face. Ahite.8. Do you have ninja skills? She said, and Naruto nodded and smiled. Yes. Even though I'm only a genin, I will eventually become a Chunin, Jonin, and Hokage. Haku grinned as he crowed. She remarked, well, you seem rather ambitious. Naruto laughed. I suppose so. What is a girl like you doing here, Haku? He inquired, and Haku grinned. Naruto snorted when Haku stated, I'm actually a boy. He said, yeah right. Haku arched an eyebrow. Why do you not trust me? Haku inquired, and Naruto pointed to her. Haku nearly blushed as he said, no boy has a chest that big, and your face looks more like a girl's than a guy's. When she said, oh, alright, I'm a girl. Naruto's smile dimmed a little. However, why did you act like a boy? Haku felt a drop of perspiration fall down her neck as Naruto said suspiciously, unless you have some other secrets. What would make me keep secrets? Naruto stared into her eyes as she stammered. As he said, Haku. A needle glinted in the corner of his eye, and he turned to pick it up. What is this? Before Haku could reply, Naruto's eyes widened and he demanded, you were that hunter.nin, he shouted, and Haku swallowed. Naruto.kun. I don't want to have to fight you, she replied. Naruto said, Haku-chan, I don't want to fight you either. They faced each other quietly and calmly before lunging at each other. Haku began to throw senbon, needles, at Naruto, who pulled out a kunai and deflected most of them. A few got stuck in his legs, but he continued running at him. Haku then threw some shuriken at Naruto, who blocked them once more. Haku began to back away, but Naruto charged his kunai with chakra and sliced at him. She retreated slowly and carefully after her clothing tore at the mid-torso, but she was unharmed. Naruto then lunged at her and swung the kunai once more, striking her arm and cutting it slightly this time. I don't want to kill you, Naruto, she yelled. Naruto grinned, then leapt back, and charged some shuriken with wind chakra, and threw them. Haku leapt backwards, only for her shirt to be cut again. She scowled. Are you trying to fight me, or undress me? She shouted at Naruto, who laughed and then charged at Haku, punching and kicking him until Haku either blocked or avoided the blows in an attempt to gain the upper hand. Naruto then grinned once more. Hey, Haku-chan, this is entertaining. With joy, Naruto inquired. Haku thought, this is all a game to him, and then came up with a plan to gain the upper hand. It might be a little unconventional, but it should work. Haku was about to make the seals for 1,000 flying water needles of death behind his back when her hands faltered, so she just kept kissing him. After all, a shinobi could die any second, and he does seem nice, she thought, still making out with Naruto. She ran at him, kissed him, and hugged him. Naruto's eyes flew open, but he kissed her back. Slowly, and a little reluctantly, she separated from Naruto and made a decision. Naruto.kun? She asked, glancing up at Naruto, who cocked his head slightly to meet her gaze. Haku-chan, what is it? He spoke quietly, and after biting her bottom lip, Haku chose to simply take his hand and guide him into the forest. Assisting Naruto's team Kurenai looked up in alarm as Kakashi and Kurenai were instructing their students when they suddenly heard ecstasy moans and screams. What was that? She cried out in alarm, and Kakashi shrugged. If I had to guess, Two people are having sex. The male seems to be rather large and has a whole ton of stamina. And we probably should get the kids away before they ask what it is also. Kakashi stated calmly. Kurenai sighed. Kiba, Shino, Hinata, let's train somewhere else, she yelled. Later, it was nighttime, and a topless Naruto was sleeping soundly beside a sleeping Haku, who was wrapped in Naruto's cloak. Naruto grinned uncomfortably as he gazed at her, thinking, wow. As if he didn't believe what he had just done himself. He smiled, though, and lay down beside her, gently caressing her hair. He waited by her side until she woke up after an hour or so, and turned to him, grinning. He whispered, Haku-chan. That guy, Zabuza, probably needs you know. Haku hugged Naruto in response. She said sadly, I know, Naruto-kun. Naruto grinned. At least we'll cross paths again at our next battle, isn't that right? He said, and Haku grinned. She said, I suppose. Naruto grinned. Well, instead of fighting, I'm going to try to persuade my team that you are genuinely good guys. Would you also try to persuade Zabuza? He asked. Haku nodded. Naruto grinned. Great. After that, we should be able to finish the mission and possibly convince you to join Konoha. Gramps won't mind, I'm sure, he said with joy, and Haku grinned. She said, of course, Naruto-kun. After taking off Naruto's cloak and putting on his clothes, she turned to face him and said, I'll see you soon. She shunned, and Naruto nodded and smiled before getting up and being hit by what felt like a piercing migraine. He hoped it was just a migraine, anyway. While you were TWEL, you had sex with the enemy, you idiot. This was amazing, Kit. You made it at 12's AGE. Your mother would have a heart attack if she knew about this. I am incredibly honored to have you as my host. After dealing with Minato and Arashi's arguments and yelling at him while he was pathetically holding his head, Naruto moaned and made his way to Tazuna's house, where he was ambushed by Shino, Kiba, Kurenai, Kakashi, and Hinata. Dude, we thought you were dead, Kiba, Shino, so you are finally back. Naruto, you shouldn't have run away like that, Kurenai. Yeah. Kakashi, you are safe, Naruto-kun, Hinata. Yeah, I know, Naruto said with a weak smile. Apologies for being away, However, Kiba sniffed the air. Hi, Naruto. What? What causes your body to smell like it has too many hormones and is feminine in scent? When the room became quiet, everyone's attention was drawn to Naruto, who was perspiring uneasily. What? He squeaked, and some of their minds were racing with ideas. God, was that Naruto? Kakashi wondered. Hinata, on the edge of tears, thought, I didn't get Naruto's first? Kurenai blushed and avoided looking at Naruto, who looked nervously at the floor before clearing his throat. If that screaming was Naruto and the girl, that means Naruto has a huge, Kurenai thought. Anyway, do you know Zabuza and the Hunter.nin? Both are still alive, and the Hunter.nin is genuinely quite kind, Naruto remarked, and she's most likely pleading with Zabuza to hold off on fighting just now, he said with a smile, and then Kiba began to laugh as his eyes widened in horror and he covered his mouth with his hand. You and the Hunter.nin had sex? Naruto became enraged as he uttered, God, I can't even imagine how ugly she must have been to want to have it with you. Naruto shot back, well, she was better looking than any girl you'll ever have sex with, if you ever get laid, Kiba. Kakashi sighed, then a clone of himself grabbed an enraged Kiba and placed him on a stool. He said sharply, I want you to explain everything. Naruto swallowed, sensing that he would be subjected to a protracted, restless night of questioning. After giving Naruto a serious look, Kakashi sighed and said, so, this, Haku, was the Hunter.nin, and she's going to try to talk Zabuza out of fighting? He said, and Naruto gave a nod. With a smile, Kakashi said, then we shall meet him, and kill him. Naruto appeared frightened. Why? He screamed, and Kakashi turned to face him. He is an unaccounted dot for nin, he said, everyone wants to destroy him. Not me. Not Haku. Kakashi gave Naruto a gloomy look as he spoke. Slowly, he said, Naruto. Naruto snarled. You will not come in contact with him or Haku-chan. After snarling and getting to his feet, they heard a door slam and a little sob. Naruto turned to hear what sounded like footsteps leaving him, and he sighed before stalking outside. Hi, Naruto.Ani. Naruto grinned piteously as Inari exclaimed joyfully. He continued walking into the woods, saying, Hey, Inari. Otuto. After what he estimated to be 20 minutes of walking, he sat down and gazed up at the sky. When Hinata's door opened and Kurenai sat beside her, she put a hand on her shoulder and said, Hey, Hinata. Hinata was crying bitterly, holding one of Naruto's jumpsuits that she had stolen from him. Hey, Naruto-kun. When Naruto saw who it was, he turned and grinned slightly. Hey, Haku-chan. Hinata said stiffly. Hello, Kurenai. Sensei. Kurenai hugged her and sighed. She said, what's wrong, Hinata? What's the matter, Naruto? Gazing up at the sky, which was now dark but not black, it was almost dawn, Naruto sighed and said, well, Haku-chan, it's about Hinata. Haku nodded. I assume she loves you too? She said, and Naruto gave a sorrowful nod. I want to stay as her friend, and I want her to be happy, but, well, she seems to be happiest around me, and... He was silenced when Haku put a finger to his lips and said, well, I know a solution. Hinata said sadly, well, Kurenai. Sensei, it's about Naruto. Kurenai gave a slow nod. She said sympathetically, you wanted to be his, but he is with Haku. With tears still streaming down her cheeks, Hinata nodded. Kurenai grinned nervously. Well, there technically is still a way, she replied. Hinata and Naruto both woke up at the same time. Both of them asked, what? Haku and Kurenai grinned. They both said, the Clan Restoration Act, at the same time. Naruto appeared perplexed. Huh? Haku grinned. It's where you take multiple wives to revive a clan, she replied. Naruto's face turned red. But would you really accept something like that? He gasped. Haku gave a nod. She crouched beside Naruto and planted a kiss on his cheek, saying, well, Naruto, I'm flattered you'd ask for my opinion, and yes, I would accept that. That Hinata girl seems rather nice, and besides. She purred, a threesome sounds really kinky. Naruto's redness deepened. Hinata's face turned red at once. PP polygamy, she exclaimed, astonished. Kurenai grinned. Well, that's the only thing I can currently think of, she replied. Hinata pressed her fingertips together and looked down. She said uneasily, I'm not sure father would approve. Kurenai sounded more assured than she actually was when she said, oh, lighten up. I'm sure your father wouldn't mind too much. After a brief period of silence, Hinata blushed and grinned. After grinning, Naruto turned to face the sky. Well, I should probably head back, he replied. Haku gave a nod. She shunned and said, well, I'll see you soon, Naruto-kun. After giving a nod, Naruto began to back away. Well, son, Minato said, I believe I will now teach you Verdant Mountain's Violent Wind. Naruto smiled. Great, he exclaimed joyfully. Minato laughed. I'm afraid this is going to be a little challenging, Minato said. First of all, it's likely that this will be your first time using jutsu with seals. Naruto nodded sheepishly. Well, it is a B-ranked jutsu, but it actually only has one seal, Minato added. After shrugging, Naruto pulled out some shuriken and hurled them at a tree. First, throw some weapons around. Good. Create the snake seal now, then use it to concentrate your chakra. Naruto nodded before focusing and accumulating chakra to create the seal. Try moving the shuriken around now. The shuriken wriggled a little before slowly emerging from the tree after Naruto nodded once more. Naruto smiled. Now, son, you can experiment. Naruto smiled as he controlled the 6 shuriken to spin and accelerate as he pleased. Then they began to surround him as well. As he maneuvered the shuriken to encircle him, Naruto gazed in wonder. Because you can use some weapons to block attacks and others to attack enemies before retracting and using them again. This jutsu can be used both offensively and defensively. You can actually make the weapons more lethal by adding wind chakra while they are under control if you have sufficient chakra control. Regretfully, you lack that level of authority. After he laughed, Naruto heard someone yell. Naruto-kun, exclaimed Kurenai. Naruto retorted, over here, Kurenai. Sensei, in relief, Kurenai rushed to him. There you are, we've been looking for you for a while, she replied. Naruto gave a nod. Anyways, we are going over to the bridge, because we suspect Zabuza will be there, she responded. Naruto smiled. Okay. He exclaimed with joy. Good thing I've trained then, huh? So, what have the others been learning? Kurenai grinned. Well, Shino learned about lightning chakra and created a jutsu called Suicidal Lightning Bug, along with being able to shoot pure lightning chakra. Kiba now knows Inner Decapitation and Earth-style Wall, while Hinata knows a weak genjutsu called Hell Viewing Technique, and a water ninjutsu called Violent Water Wave. Naruto smiled. It was awesome, he exclaimed. Kurenai gave him a look. What about you, Naruto-kun? Naruto smiled. Chakra control, channeling wind chakra into blades, and a really cool B-ranked jutsu, he laughed. Kurenai inquired, and how did you learn those? Naruto took a swallow. He made up, Haku taught me. Kurenai let out a sigh. Kurenai said, well, come on, Naruto-kun. After laughing, Naruto began to follow. Kurenai looked in his direction. Is something wrong? She asked. Naruto gave her a smile. He started to run in the direction of the house and remarked, oh, I'm just finding it odd how you have been calling me Naruto-kun. Kurenai tried to stammer something as her eyes widened, but she simply shook her head and followed him. Kakashi stated gravely, okay, once we are at the bridge, everyone get ready for a possible fight. Does everyone have their supplies? Shino muttered, yes, along with some special drugs for my insects. Hinata replied, yes, and I brought some medicinal cream. Kiba said, yep, and some soldier pills for Akamaru and me. Yeah, let's go, cried Naruto. Later, when Naruto and his group reached the bridge, it was shrouded in thick fog. A shadow far away caught Naruto's attention. Zabuza? So, do you want to have a truce then? A whistling sound was then heard, and the entire team was struck with a terrifying intent to kill. With a curse, Kakashi bounded forward, displaying his Sharingan. Zabuza and Kakashi were pushing on either side of the giant decapitating knife when the mist partially cleared, and Kakashi was losing because the blade was slowly moving in his direction. Naruto muttered, I'll take that as a no. He pulled out a shuriken and charged it with wind chakra, turning it into a huge, white weapon that he hurled at Kakashi and Zabuza. Zabuza staggered, got slightly cut, and fell back, while Kakashi swiftly ducked out of the way. Before Zabuza fell into a pool of water, Naruto smiled. Kakashi leapt back in Naruto's direction. That was awesome. Sorry I almost hit you, but how did you dodge that? Replied Naruto. Kakashi muttered, saw a bit of it reflected in the corner of Zabuza's eye. Watch out, he shouted, pushing Naruto back and getting struck by a huge water dragon. Zabuza approached and inserted his hand into it, transforming it into a huge sphere that trapped Kakashi inside. Zabuza said icily, water prison technique. His eyes widened, and Kiba pulled him waist deep into the earth, but the sphere held on tight. Zabuza then screamed as Shino fried parts of his torso while tiny yellow streaks shot at him. After growling, he threw some shuriken at Hinata with his free hand. She yelled, violent water wave, and blasted the shuriken away. Zabuza's gaze expanded. He threw his sword at Shino and muttered, what have you been teaching these kids, copy. Ninja? Then he staggered back after Naruto struck him in the stomach. After gazing into his eyes, Naruto appeared as a dozen Narutos, all of whom leapt back and hurled shuriken at Zabuza. With a growl, Zabuza withdrew his hand from the water prison and vanished. With their kunai at the ready, the Narutos formed a ring. Nice try. When Zabuza emerged in the middle of the ring and swung his sword, turning all of the clones to smoke and leaving only the original, Naruto's eyes widened. Naruto swiftly raised two kunai with wind chakra to block the blade as Zabuza roared and swung at him. Zabuza laughed as he gradually overpowered Naruto with just one hand. He curtly remarked, nice try kid, but you're no Jonin. Naruto smiled. Yeah, but he is. After swiftly avoiding a Chidori from Kakashi, Zabuza turned and froze. In other words, he had to freeze. He noticed that he was tied to a tree when he looked up, and the woman Jonin was emerging from it brandishing a kunai. Genjutsu. He pondered anxiously. After biting his lip sufficiently to shatter the illusion, he began creating seals, and Kakashi followed suit. Both shouted, grand waterfall technique, and hurled a massive stream of water at one another. The attacks neutralized one another, and Kakashi and Zabuza both created water clones. Both mumbled, damn Sharingan, simultaneously. Hey, stop copying me, shouted Kakashi and Zabuza. Yeah, go sensei, exclaimed Naruto joyfully. Grinning, he turned. Awesome fight, huh Kiba? He blinked. Kiba wasn't present. Hinata and Shino weren't either, guys. When he turned around again, he saw a strange structure that looked like it was made of ice and two people fighting. Ice? Haku! He exclaimed as he dashed in the direction of the enormous ice dome. Shino yelled, Naruto, I need some assistance. Naruto spun around in time to see Shino engaged in combat with a man who was flinging kunai. Naruto shouted, coming, and rushed in his direction. The man smiled. An insane, oh, fun. Another victim, he exclaimed. Then he showed off some wires that were connected to the kunai in his left hand. The wires began to glow as the man formed a seal with his right hand that looked like half of a tiger seal. He rotated the wires. He yelled, "Razor wire technique," and pointed the wires at Naruto. When Naruto leapt over one, his right pant leg was slit open, resulting in a shallow 3-inch laceration. Naruto turned to face Shino. He gasped, "How is he doing that?" Shino gave a shrug. "I'm guessing he is a wind user, and is infusing those wires with wind chakra. He can whip those wires around to block any and all attacks we attempt, so we cannot defeat him," Shino replied. Naruto let out a moan. Then he muttered, "Great." Kiba screamed, "Piercing fang," and crashed into a mirror, only to be redirected. He groaned and looked up as Haku struck him with a senbon. "Kiba!" exclaimed Hinata anxiously. She looked in the mirror. Then she screamed, 8 trigrams 64 palms, and struck the mirror. After a small crack, it fixed itself. Kiba smiled, "Ah, don't worry, I'm fine." Then he threw Akamaru a soldier pill as his expression darkened. He shattered a mirror and yelled, "All right." Dual piercing fang. As the mirror began to regenerate, he turned to Hinata. He ran toward Kakashi, Kurenai, and Zabuza and yelled, "Stay here, I'm going to get some help." Instead, Hinata let out a whine. Another voice said, "Don't worry." Hinata noticed Haku speaking when she looked up. She whispered, "I'm not going to hurt you." Hinata still had a tense appearance. "I wish I could just dispel these mirrors, but Zabuza put a cursed seal on me that will paralyze me for forever if I disobey him," she said quietly. Hinata took a swallow. Haku gave a sorrowful smile. Haku asked, "So, has Naruto told you?" The ice was cold, and Hinata shuddered. "She told me what?" Haku grinned. She remarked, "The clan protection laws, silly." Hinata gave a small smile. She responded, "No, but my sensei did." Haku gave a contemplative nod. Haku was amused by Hinata's slight fidgeting. She questioned, "Is something wrong?" Hinata gave a headshake. "Well, could you tell me about Naruto?" she said. Haku's eyebrows went up. "You've known him longer than I have," she replied. Hinata's face turned red. With emphasis, she said, "I meant, can you tell me about Naruto?" After a moment of confusion, Haku's expression changed to one of realization. She smiled and said, "Oh." Hinata's face flushed even more. As Kakashi and Kurenai were about to kill Zabuza after defeating him, Kiba rushed up to them and yelled, "Hinata's in trouble." Kurenai's eyes grew wide, and she sprinted in the direction of Haku and Hinata. Zabuza gained the upper hand once more, and Kakashi moaned. With a mumble, "Thanks," Kiba took a swallow. He said, "Sorry, sensei." Kakashi cursed. He shouted, "Just get Naruto or something." Kiba gave a nod before sprinting in the direction of Shino and Naruto, who were desperately avoiding every attack from their adversary. He shouted, "Hey, Naruto, Kakashi needs you." Naruto gave a nod. He shouted, "Fight this guy then," and avoided looking at Zabuza. After nodding, Kiba let out a yelp as 3 kunai were hurled at him, becoming lodged in his clothing and causing him to fall to the ground. After muttering something to himself, Shino began attempting to free Kiba. Zabuza clipped Kakashi's shoulder with his sword. When Kakashi screamed in agony, Zabuza smiled and swung his sword once more, but Naruto stopped him by grabbing his wrist and putting a kunai to his throat. Naruto took a step back as Zabuza turned to face a puddle. Kakashi whispered, "Okay. Naruto, could you transform back into Minato?" "Sensei?" Naruto looked over at him. While smiling, he said, "Sorry, but I can't." Kakashi cursed. They turned and jumped in opposite directions, avoiding another water dragon, when they heard a deafening yell. Zabuza's chakra nearly ran out as he panted heavily. He thought grimly, "But I still have enough chakra to kill all of them." Then he shouted in anger. He was immobilized by the dozens of Narutos. He attempted to shake them off, but they simply continued to fly back onto him after he did so, indicating that they were still attracted to him. Naruto smiled. He heard a chirping sound and turned in horror to see Kakashi running angrily towards him with lightning gathered around his hands. "Verdant Mountain's violent wind. It allows me to fly straight back at you once you throw me off." Chidori twin. With Kurenai. Kurenai heard them conversing while she was at the jutsu that Hinata was trapped in. Someone who Kurenai thought was Haku said, "Yeah, Naruto was really nice, and a real gentleman. And he really does like you, Hinata." Really? The voice of Hinata said, "Certainly, he's very kind and considerate." Haku remarked, "Oh, and whoever you were behind my mirror, you can come out already. It's no wonder you chose to have a crush on him." Kurenai gasped. She believed she had been perfectly concealed. Oh, I understand, said Haku, grinning at her. The Kurenai I've heard so much about must be you. Do you also have a crush on Naruto? She asked joyfully. Despite Kurenai's red flush, she tried to stammer something out before Haku cut her off, saying, I'm not sure he likes older women, but I'm sure he'll take you into consideration. Chidori twin, Haku screamed as he turned, Zabuza. As he struggled to prevent Kakashi from killing Zabuza, Naruto was panting and holding Kakashi's arms in place. Kakashi had attempted to stab Zabuza in the liver and heart, but Naruto diverted the blows to Zabuza's shoulders, rendering his arms useless. Kakashi. Naruto muttered. Naruto turned angrily when they heard a strange laugh and saw a man with hundreds of samurai behind him standing at the other end of the bridge. All right, Zabuza. Zabuza growled, it appears you have failed once more, and we must reduce your pay. He whispered, Gadu. The man engaged in combat with Shino and Kiba abruptly halted, saying, I'm not getting paid. To the relief of Shino and Kiba, he muttered, that's it, I'm out of here, and shunned away. Oh, and we will actually murder you as well, and then, we'll take Haku and those other two girls and sell them to brothels, Gadu said, to Zabuza's snort. The eyes of Naruto and Zabuza grew wide, and they turned angrily to face Gadu. Actually, I might take the three of them to be my personal slaves. Die, kid. Throw me a kunai, yelled Naruto and Zabuza as they ran toward Gadu. As the samurai charged at the two of them, Zabuza yelled. Arashi's chakra reddened Naruto's eyes, but he was still in control, and he threw a kunai, which Zabuza caught in his teeth. The two shinobi charged at the samurai, and began brutally killing them, Zabuza by kunai, and Naruto by simply smashing them out of the way with a kyubi. Chakra fist. Gadu stared in horror as the samurai only managed to make small cuts on the two, and they kept moving forward, and he began to back away slowly before Naruto leapt up at him. Haku. Chan, Hinata. Chan, and Kurenai. Chan will never be touched by you. Naruto yelled, as white chakra started building up in his hand. Naruto swung his hand. Hurricane Claw. An enormous shockwave of wind blasted from Naruto's hand, slicing Gadu into bloody ribbons, and the air seemed to explode as the wind continued to flow from Naruto's hand, cracking the bridge, until Naruto's eyes turned blue again and he fell from midair, panting, and he turned to see Zabuza coughing up blood with a short sword through his chest. Zabuza. Haku ran to him, a tear streaming down her cheek, and whispered, Zabuza. Sama. As Naruto and the others ran up to Zabuza, who was clearly dying. Hi, Naruto. Ani. These thugs attacked me and my mom, and I beat them away, isn't that awesome? Inari shouted as he ran joyfully to him. These thugs attacked me and my mom, and I beat them away, isn't that awesome? He said, turning to face Zabuza, who coughed up more blood before struggling to lift an arm, and he tapped her on the neck, where a seal was. The seal vanished, and Zabuza grinned. Haku. Would you mind accompanying these folks to Konoha? Good. He whispered, and Haku nodded, crying, and Zabuza smiled. His eyes dulled, and Haku started crying, and Naruto gave her a sorrowful hug before turning to face Kakashi. He opened his mouth to speak, but was cut off. Kakashi nodded and said, let's return to Konoha. After 2 weeks. I miss Team 8 already. Naruto sighed, pushing his hair back over his Hide.8 as a light breeze blew his hair into his eyes as he gazed out over the village from his father's head atop the Hokage monument. Rewind, a week ago. What? Kakashi sighed as Naruto yelled. Naruto moaned as Kakashi stated, I said, we're breaking up into Teams 7 and 8 again, and Sasuke and Sakura are joining with us again. What squad will Haku-chan play for, then? He inquired, and Kakashi let out another sigh. Taking 3 scrolls out of his pocket, he said, she is being promoted directly to Chunin. Which reminds me. I've recommended all 3 of you for the Chunin exams. With a raised eyebrow, Naruto said, 3? Yes. He was wearing a long black cloak with the Uchiha symbol on the back, and his hair was now hanging over his eyes instead of looking like, well, a duck's ass. Naruto yelled and leapt into the air to see Sasuke, but he didn't look exactly like Sasuke. He was still a few inches taller than Sasuke, so he smirked a little. He called out, hey, Teme. Calmly, Sasuke said, hello, Naruto-san. Why have you done to Sasuke and who the hell are you? As Naruto screamed and slammed Sasuke to the ground, Sasuke's smile persisted. My name is Naruto-san, Sasuke. He continued to smile and said, you see, by having a level and calm head at all times, combat ability is enhanced. Ibiki. Dono and Sai. Sama have helped me learn to control myself. Naruto appeared perplexed. Huh? As Naruto looked up to see Sakura, a voice said, "He meant that by being calm, you fight better." However, it wasn't Sakura at the same time. Sakura wore kunai and shuriken all over her now much skimpier clothes, which included a black miniskirt, a purple shirt that exposed her stomach, and fishnet stockings with black shoes. Her hair had grown and was now pulled back in a ponytail. Sakura walked casually past Naruto and paused just past Sasuke. She told Sasuke, "That's a nice look on you." Then, in a flash of light, Sakura licked a tiny cut on Sasuke's face that began to bleed. "Yeah, I've trained her well, huh?" said Naruto, his eyes wide with fear. When Naruto jumped back, he fell into Anko's arms and was kissed quickly. "Wah!" he whispered as he fell, dazed, but Hinata, not to be outdone, quickly grabbed him and kissed him too, almost knocking him out. With a sigh, Kakashi turned to Shino and handed him a scroll, saying, "Shino, I realize I cannot train you anymore, so I want to give you this." Shino nodded in appreciation. Kurenai then approached Naruto and said, "I was able to obtain this scroll for you after some convincing. Make good use of it," she said, and Naruto smiled. Kurenai. "Sensei, thank you." Flashback end. "Hey." Naruto grinned before turning around as Sakura ran up next to him and Sasuke sunshined over there as well. Sakura nodded and joyfully said, "Hey, Naruto." Naruto smiled. "Hi, Sakura." Naruto turned to face the fading sun and said, "Hey Sasuke, are you guys ready for the Chunin exams?" Sasuke nodded in response. Sakura smiled as he asked, "Certainly. In addition to teaching me strength and speed, Anko Sensei discovered that I had exceptional chakra control and arranged for me to receive medic. Ninja training," Sakura said, and Sasuke gave a nod. "Ibiki. Sama taught me about my lightning affinity and forced me to spar against Sama for at least 2 hours every day. Lightning, which can paralyze, numb, and cause excruciating pain, was fortunately helpful for the torture methods he taught me," Sasuke said, as Naruto went pale. "Okay," he said, a little uneasy. Sasuke nodded and smiled. Naruto smiled and then scowled when he noticed something in the village below. He then made a seal. "Jutsu no Shunshin," he shouted and disappeared. "That does it, you little," Naruto said icily, "put the kid down." The tall boy turned to face Naruto. "Who are you?" "Snidely," he said. Naruto flashed a smile. When a foot struck the back of Kankuro's head, causing him to drop Konohamaru, he gasped and skidded a few yards before wiping the blood from his mouth and turning to see Naruto standing taller than him. "What's your name?" Naruto uttered those words. "Kankuro," he snorted. "Which is yours?" As Temari slowly approached from behind, he asked, and Naruto grinned. Calmly, he pointed to Konohamaru and said, "Naruto Uzumaki. And the kid you were picking on is the Hokage's grandson." After swallowing, Kankuro smiled while Temari swung her heavy metal fan. "Watch out, kid!" shouted Arashi. The tip of Naruto's finger was glowing red with chakra. Red chakra. But everyone has blue chakra. Except for green when dense or healing. Differently colored chakra means he's a host for a tailed demon. Temari's eyes widened as she saw that Naruto had blocked the fan with one finger. "You aren't from Konoha," Temari said, panting as Naruto slowly turned his head in her direction and flicked his finger idly before a gust of chakra threw her back 10 feet onto her back. "You're here, but why?" Calmly, he said. With a sigh, Sakura said, "The Chunin exams. How did you get here?" Naruto yelled, turning to face her. "Anyway, all of the villages come together to have the Chunin exams, so that some genin can become Chunin. Sasuke sunshined me here." Naruto grinned sheepishly. He muttered, "Oh. Right." Temari glanced at each of them. "How were the exams unknown to you? At the very least, are you Chunin?" Naruto turned as she asked, perplexed. Sakura rolled her eyes as he responded, "No, but I think I should be at least Jonin level by now." Temari looked at Naruto, perplexed, until sand began to move around her feet, and she whipped her head around in alarm. "Maybe a specialized .in. Combat Jonin. But you're barely even Genin level in other stuff." Naruto smiled sheepishly once more. "Gaara!" she cried out in a terrified tone, and Naruto looked up drearily. "Gaara?" Naruto smiled, but Kankuro looked scared as his eyes met the dark ones of the redhead above him. Gaara was silent for a moment before his intent to kill began to flow. He thought, Gaara only uses killing intent on people he knows will be good opponents, or that he is certain he will kill. Then, like a tsunami, a wave of killing intent swept out of Naruto, leaving Temari and Kankuro gasping for air. Gaara stopped, looking surprised, and turned slowly as sand began to spin around him. Then he whispered, "Kyubi." Arashi hissed, "Shukaku." Then, as Gaara disappeared, Arashi ceased to influence Naruto. Temari whimpered and fled with Kankuro. Naruto sighed. "When are the Chunin exams, Sakura?" "Days later, exams for Chunin." Naruto grimly stared at the questions on the paper in front of him, having just seen who Ibiki was and not being surprised that Sasuke was now so respectful. "How am I going to accomplish this?" he thought frantically. "Naruto, the purpose of this test is to cheat," Minato answered. "No, the final response is probably the most crucial," Arashi shouted. As the two adults clashed, Naruto held his head tightly. Hinata gave Naruto a worried glance. She muttered, Naruto? Do you need any help?" Naruto grinned and shook his head as the instructors looked around the room. He exhaled, "It's okay, Hinata-chan. Don't worry." Hinata gave a nod. After smiling, Naruto began filling in the answers at random while he awaited the 10th question. 5 minutes later, Ibiki got to his feet. "Alright maggots, time for the T-nth question. You can choose not to take it and leave, or take it, get it wrong, and never get the chance to be a Chunin." "That's unfair," exclaimed one genin. Ibiki struck the table with his palm. "I'm the instructor. I decide what's fair or not," he growled. After mumbling something, the genin took a seat. "Raise your hand if you want to leave." Before long, their teams departed as a large number of people began to raise their hands. After noticing Hinata's hand twitch, Naruto turned and faced Ibiki. Ibiki's eyebrow went up. "Yes?" Then he screamed, "I'm not falling for any of this crap. Even if you make me never become a Chunin, I'll be so freaking great, Gramps will make me Hokage instantly, believe it." Ibiki let out a sigh. "No one put up their hands when I asked. Well, does anyone else want to leave?" He grinned. "Fine. You all. Pass." Naruto blinked. "What? The point of the question was just to see if you were brave enough to take the question." Ibiki responded with coolness. Naruto smiled. "All right." Then a sheet of paper with 4 kunai on it passed over their heads. Sasuke started reading, introducing the strongest, smartest, sexiest kunoichi in the whole world. Anko screamed, "Anko Mitarashi," and rushed into the room. Ibiki started to perspire. He said, "You're early." Anko surveyed the area. She yelled, "Look at all of these teams. You're getting soft." She then noticed Naruto. She joyfully jumped into his lap and exclaimed, "Gaki!" To his evident surprise. Ibiki started to perspire once more. Just take them to the second part of the exams. Later, as Anko kept cutting, licking, and kissing Naruto, Naruto stood by his team while the other teams received either heaven or earth scrolls and signed consent forms. "Well, here you go." Naru.kun handed him a scroll with joy. Naruto said dryly, "Thanks." He looked it over. A scroll of heaven. He grinned. "So, Anko, which gate?" She purred, "Gate 12. "Oh, and don't die, K?" Naruto nodded slowly. After Naruto shunshined, Sasuke, who was holding Sakura, also shunshined her. Naruto examined the figure. As he entered the forest of death, he remarked, "This must be it." He surveyed the area. "Alright guys, let's focus on getting an earth scroll then." He concluded. Naruto fled into the forest after Sasuke and Sakura nodded. Sakura looked around and grinned. "This won't be too hard. Anko. Sensei made me train here before," she replied. Naruto smiled. He said, "Great, hold on. I have to go," and fled through some bushes. Sakura let out a sigh. "Well, looks like Naruto hasn't changed a bit," she replied. Sasuke gave a shrug. Naruto soon came back smiling. "Hey guy." Sasuke then kicked him in the stomach, sending him hurtling into a tree. He muttered, "Wah." "Sasuke!" exclaimed Sakura. Sasuke gave a spooky smile. He questioned, "What have you done to Naruto?" Naruto groaned and got to his feet. He made the declaration, "I am Naruto." Sasuke gave a snort. Sasuke continued to smile and said, "Yeah right. The real Naruto would have blocked that." Naruto snarled and transformed into a foreign ninja in a cloud of smoke. He smiled and said, "Fine. But, I'll still kick your A." Then he was kicked in the neck by the real Naruto, rendering him unconscious. He held up 2 scrolls and said, "Sorry guys, but that guy's team distracted me." Luckily. With another smile, Sasuke said, "They had an earth scroll." "Good job." He concluded. "Yes, good job, Kukuku." A giant snake slammed into Naruto as he turned in alarm. Naruto, Sakura exclaimed anxiously. The figure said, "Oh, don't worry, he'll die quickly enough." The girl then emerged from the darkness. Still grinning, Sasuke took a defensive step back. The figure grinned as well. "Well, at least you have a pleasant attitude, Sasuke-kun," it replied. "So, who are you?" inquired Sasuke. She said, "My name is Orochimaru." "Really? I thought that was a mon's name." Orochimaru twitched his eye. "That's because it is?" With Naruto. At the moment, Naruto was in the enormous snake's throat. "Arashi," he blurted out, "I need some chakra." He said, "Fine." At that moment, Naruto began to smile and glow red. The snake then burst into a mass of skin and blood in a massive chakra pulse. Naruto smiled. Too easy. Alongside Sakura and Sasuke. Sakura attempted to strike him from behind, but Sasuke was able to hold his own by using his sword and fire techniques. Kukuku. Managing to almost tie with me with the help of only one person. You are even stronger than I could have hoped for, Sasuke-kun. Orochimaru was purring. Sasuke then made some seals after Sakura kicked him from behind. Orochimaru responded by creating his own signs after he yelled, "Great Fireball Technique," and hurled a huge, white-hot fireball at him. He exclaimed, "Great Breakthrough," and sent out a gust of wind that transformed the fireball into a massive, flaming wall. Sasuke merely shuffled off to a tree and gripped a minor burn injury. Orochimaru grinned before approaching Sasuke cautiously. Sasuke-kun. Die, stupid pedophile. A foot crashed into Orochimaru's face as he turned. Naruto smiled, jumped back, and ran forward once more. Dad, Arashi. He then began to radiate red, green, and blue chakra. Orochimaru's eyebrow went up. Naruto sealed his hands together. Multiple shadow clone jutsu. Abruptly, thousands of clones, still humming with chakra, appeared. Orochimaru smiled. He muttered, "Bring it on, idiot." The clones then all flickered and vanished. Orochimaru felt as though he had been struck a million times after his eyes widened. With a scream, he fell backward. Then he smiled. He drew a sword and said softly, "That does it." Kusanagi. He exclaimed as he dashed in the direction of the clones at breakneck speed. He began killing the majority of them, and Naruto's attempts at blows hardly affected him at all. When he realized there was only one left, he rushed towards him. Orochimaru let go of the blade after it pierced Naruto's stomach, allowing it to remain there. After grinning, he turned to face Sakura and Sasuke and sunshined at them. After grinning, he parted his lips. Cursed seal of heaven. What? Naruto had been bitten in the neck and was standing between Sasuke and Orochimaru. Orochimaru frowned. He thought angrily, now I can't apply another seal for a day. He turned resentfully. Hopefully, he'll pass away. The mind of Naruto. Minato shouted, "Naruto," as she felt Naruto's vitality ebbing away. He growled. "Arashi. Try to burn off the seal. I'll use my chakra to try to sustain him." Arashi began attacking the seal with destructive chakra without wasting any time in words. After that, the seal began to churn and glow white. "Minato," said Arashi uneasily. Minato yelled, "Got it, Naruto's now stable." Then there was a black flash. The two saw something rather frightening when their vision returned. A figure who resembled Naruto but was a little taller, with deathly pale skin, demented yellow eyes, and sickly gray hair, was standing next to them. In addition, his clothing was inverted. He was dressed in a black shirt and white pants, as well as a white cloak with blue flames. The figure flashed a menacing smile. He hissed, "I'll show Naruto to nearly die on us." Then he flickered and vanished. The real world. Orochimaru's ankle was grabbed. Orochimaru turned to see Naruto, but his eyes were yellow, his hair was gray, and his skin was pale. His eyes widened. Naruto howled as Orochimaru staggered back. Naruto turned to face Orochimaru, who looked perplexed. "Damn it, Uzumaki Naruto. You nearly died because of your own stupidity. You have so much power and chakra, but you waste it all," he went on. Then he grinned, which in some way alarmed Orochimaru. "I'll show you how to properly use your power, Naruto." When Naruto opened his palm, white chakra began to accumulate around it, causing Orochimaru to jump back. After that, it changed into white flames and flew in Orochimaru's direction. Orochimaru made a seal while grinning. He shouted, "Great breakthrough," in an effort to extinguish the fire. But the fire just hit him, and he let out a cry of pain. With a cold smile, Naruto exclaimed, "Idiot, that wasn't flame chakra, that was pure chakra in the shape of flames." Then he leapt at Orochimaru, and Orochimaru was struck by white lightning that appeared in his palm. Orochimaru snarled before launching his Kusanagi at Naruto. When Naruto grinned, a white blade materialized in his hands, which he used to block the Kusanagi. Orochimaru grinned. "Imbecile, my legendary Kusanagi is indestructible." Then Orochimaru's sword was broken by Naruto's swing. Naruto grinned as Orochimaru gazed down at the fragments. He said dryly, "Oh, don't worry about it. I'm sure you can just use your other legendary, indestructible sword," Naruto replied. Sakura exclaimed, "Wow, Naruto is amazing." Sasuke gave a nod. He was also not grinning. "Yeah, but I don't think that is Naruto." Sakura faced him. "What?" Sasuke scowled. He's referring to himself in the third person. Orochimaru leapt back down in a protective position. Orochimaru believed he saw clones of Naruto appear as he leapt at him. He grinned. As he watched them all dash around him, he demanded, "You think mere shadow clones will work on me?" Then he reached out and smashed one. However, his hand passed through it. Normal clones? His chakra must be low, Orochimaru thought. However, he was struck quickly, dozens of times, and fell back. He then witnessed what appeared to be Naruto repeatedly kicking and punching him in midair. Those aren't clones. With his Sharingan in motion, Sasuke concluded, those are afterimages. Sakura turned to face him. Afterimages? Sasuke gave a nod. Sakura turned to the fight and said, "He's moving so fast, it appears like he has clones moving, and that he is at places where he was." Naruto. While Naruto was flying hundreds of feet above Orochimaru, he lay on the ground, bleeding and panting. He yelled maniacally, "I'm going to crush you into bloody dust," and fled in the direction of Orochimaru. Orochimaru's eyes went closed. So, this is the conclusion. Ah! When Orochimaru looked up, he saw Naruto, who had blue eyes, blonde hair, and normal skin and clothing. The idea of dying once more made him shiver. He thought grimly, "I only have enough chakra and strength to shunshin away. Naruto-kun, I'll be watching you." Sasuke gave Naruto, who was lying on his back, a suspicious glance. Naruto had repeatedly changed over the last few hours, almost killing Sakura and himself and destroying a lot of the forest before he passed out once more. He let out a sigh before hearing a sound. Silently, he said, "Sakura." Sakura nodded, saying, "I hear crying. I think that's Hinata." Sakura was right behind Sasuke as he changed course and leapt in the direction of the sound. Then Sakura gave a little scream. There was blood all over. There were mangled human remains everywhere. Kiba and Shino were conversing with Hinata, who was shivering and crying. Sasuke bounded toward her. He inquired, "What happened?" Hinata whimpered again after shivering and attempting to speak. When Sasuke turned, he noticed some sand on the floor. He squinted his eyes, then Hinata let out a shriek. She looked at Naruto, who was still on Sasuke's back, and exclaimed, "Naruto! Naruto!" with concern. Sasuke carefully placed Naruto down. He tried to smile again and said, "He is currently resting from a fight with an S-rank missing nin." Hinata let out a horrified gasp. Sasuke let out a sigh. "Let me rephrase that. He beat Orochimaru, but was so tired, he fell unconscious." Hinata grinned. With a whisper, "Wow." Then Naruto moaned and stirred. Naruto's blue eyes opened as Sasuke took a step back, getting ready to use a kunai. He gave a weak smile and turned to see Hinata sobbing and blood all over the place. He inquired, "What happened?" Hinata's smile wavered a bit before fading. Naruto turned around and sat up. Then he noticed it, silently, sand. He said. He frowned. "What the hell did Gaara do?" Kiba answered, but Hinata swallowed. "Some AIM ninjas attacked Gaara and his team, and then... well, he killed them by just squishing them in sand until they exploded." He explained. Naruto's eyes narrowed until they resembled fox eyes. "Really?" he said in a whisper. Sasuke sensed that Naruto was surrounded by spinning chakra. Sternly, "Naruto, calm down." The chakra vanished as Naruto snorted. Then he grinned and sighed. "Well, Hinata-chan, does your team have both scrolls?" he replied. Hinata gave a nod. Naruto grinned. "Good. Then let's get to the tower." "I don't think so." Naruto turned to see her team and a female ninja standing in a tree. She smiled. "You rookies have no chance of getting to the third round." Naruto's eyebrow went up. "Hey, Sasuke, you know who they are?" Sasuke gave a headshake. He said softly, "Only that they're from sound." Naruto smiled. "Great. Then I have no problem with kicking their asses, he gasped. Hinata, Kiba, Shino, go to the tower. We'll take care of these clowns. One snorted. Don't make me laugh, this'll only take a minute. Naruto laughed. When he slowly stood up, he said, that's where you're wrong. He looked into the boy's eyes. What's your name? Zaku Abumi. He smiled in response. And why did you say I'm wrong? Because this won't even take a second. A big cut appeared on Zaku's shoulder as he gasped. He turned to see Naruto with a kunai in his hand directly behind him. Naruto smiled. Zaku quickly collected himself and said, don't worry though, I don't think we'll kill you. We just'll have to fight you for long enough to get Hinata's team to the tower, then go ourselves. He said, Shunshin no jutsu, huh? He grinned. In my opinion, that's a pretty dumb jutsu. Naruto inquired, why do you say that? Zaku gave a fierce smile. It uses as excessive amount of chakra to move a tiny distance. Really? Inquired Naruto. Zaku grinned and said, I think it's pretty cool. Well then, let's see how you fare against my team's jutsu, speed of sound. As Zaku vanished in a flash, Naruto's eyes grew wide, and he jumped back before taking a fist to the stomach. After snarling, Naruto made a few shadow clones, each of whom moved in a different direction. Kin shouted, flinging Senbon at Sakura, dance, bitch. Sakura let out a sigh before sprinting towards Kin, avoiding every needle, and shoving her hand forward. Sakura swung her hand, causing Kin to scream in agony as Kin leaned back. Sakura's glowing hand was displayed. She said simply, Chakra scalpel. Sakura flinched as Kin ducked beneath her and inserted a Senbon into her leg as she rushed forward once more. Sakura began to bleed after Kin took out the needle. Kin grinned. That was a major artery I just pierced, she explained. Sakura frowned and hurried forward once more. Sasuke grinned as he kept cutting Dosu in several non-fatal spots, leaving him helpless. Then, leaning closer to him, he began to shock him with lightning chakra. Naruto gripped a kunai and exclaimed, damn. Both hands. Zaku had destroyed all but 2 of his clones. Found you. As Zaku made a seal, Naruto's eyes popped open and he leapt back. He shouted, decapitating airwave. After dodging the attack by Shun Shining, Naruto threw a kunai and made a seal. He shouted, verdant mountain's violent wind. Every kunai rushed to Zaku, who smiled before vanishing in a loud boom. Naruto snarled. How am I going to stay on top of that? He pondered. Minato retorted, you can use your hand to guide the kunai to increase their speed, but they will lose their multi-directional ability. Just as Zaku emerged, Naruto smiled and threw out his hand, firing them all at him at lightning speed. After gasping, Zaku tried to block them with a kunai, but the force behind them pushed him into a tree, and he vanished. Naruto leapt into the air, then hurled all of the kunai at Zaku when he emerged below him. As the kunai pierced Zaku's flesh, he screamed, and Naruto slowly sank farther. Then Zaku passed out. After smiling, Naruto put the kunai back in his pouch. Hey, Sakura-san, how's your fight going? Then Sakura called back, just finished. Naruto grinned. Hey, Sasuke, let's go then, in the tower. Naruto set both of his scrolls down on a table. Well, what now? Sakura gave a shrug. We opened the scrolls. Naruto gave a headshake. Weren't we told not to open the scrolls? Sasuke gave an eye roll. Anko. Sama said only to not open them outside. We should open them. Naruto exhaled. He opened the 2 at the same time and said, whatever. Then there was a large cloud of smoke. Iruka? Iruka smiled. Iruka said, hey, Naruto, long time no see, instead. Naruto smiled. Iruka. Iruka grinned even more broadly. Well Naruto, you passed. You see, ninja often have to take important items to places, and they mustn't look inside, which was the point of this exercise. He chuckled. Are you 3 ready for the 3rd round? Naruto smiled. He yelled, hell yeah. Iruka gave a shrug. Too bad, cuz there's now a preliminary, what? Later. While the matches were being selected, Naruto and his group waited tensely. Then all of the matches suddenly flashed on a big screen. Naruto gave it a look. Sasuke nodded and said, well, you're with some weirdo, Sasuke. You're against Ino, Sakura. Sakura grinned. Great, I'm against Kiba. That should be easy. And Hinata. Who's Neji? Sasuke let out a sigh. They're a Konoha team from last year. Neji is Hinata's cousin, and last year's Rookie of the Year. On his team is a girl called Tenten, a weapons master, and La. Did someone call my name? Naruto gaped. A rather tall, bowl-cut, spandex wearing, big-eyed weirdo was standing in front of him. The oddball struck a pose. "I am Rock Lee, handsome devil of Konoha." Sasuke approached Naruto, who just kept staring in disbelief. "Nice to meet you, Lee-san. My name is Sasuke Uchiha." Lee jumped back. He then assumed a defensive stance and exclaimed, "Oh ho! So you are this year's Rookie of the Year. We shall fight to raise our flames of youth." Sasuke grinned. Calmly, he said, "Sorry, but I've got to fight." After that, he avoided the field. In the meantime, "But, Orochimaru-sama, please. I just need you to replace one of the contestants. I might need Dosu for other purposes." Orochimaru replied quietly. The young man before him gave a nod. "Yes, Orochimaru-sama. Oh, and please don't use your full power, or else you might kill everyone, alright?" "Of course, Orochimaru-sama." Orochimaru grinned. "Good boy, Kimimaro." With Sasuke. As he waited for the match to begin, Sasuke glanced at Yoroi, his opponent. The test proctor yelled, "Begin." Is that the correct word? With a blink, Sasuke activated his Sharingan. After grinning, Yoroi created some seals. Water clones. When water is scarce. Interesting, he reflected. Then clones jumped out of Yoroi, and suddenly he glowed. Did he use his body's water to make clones? Or did he possess sufficient chakra to create water? He squinted his eyes. As he ran in the direction of the original, Sasuke thought, "In any case, I think I can still win, with lightning techniques." Sasuke jumped to the side and simultaneously jabbed the clone with a lightning covered palm after he stepped in front of him. Sasuke kept running at the original, creating some seals as well, while the clone exploded. He screamed, "Great fireball!" and hurled a huge ball of flame at the two. They jumped aside, but then Sasuke leapt up and spun around, throwing two shuriken that encircled the two Yoroi. He shouted, "Dragon fire technique," and the shuriken's wires caught fire. Both turned to water and slipped out of the wires, but Yoroi just grinned. Sasuke let out a gasp. He muttered, "Where's the real one?" One puddle said, "Actually, I am the real one." As the water transformed back into Yoroi, Sasuke turned in disbelief. Sasuke snarled and charged at Yoroi, saying, "You see, one of my jutsus involves me being able to turn into water." Yoroi made some seals while laughing. Descending hell. Smirking, Sasuke kept running in Yoroi's direction. Yoroi gave him a questioning glance. "What?" "My Sharingan can see through illusions, Yoroi." Yoroi let out a gasp. He had Sasuke behind him. "Shunshin?" He pondered. Sasuke then kicked him, causing him to crash into a wall. Yoroi coughed up blood grimly after hitting the wall hard. Then he noticed Sasuke standing over him, his hand glimmering with vitality. "You see, this jutsu can cause numbness, paralyzation, absorption and release of energy, and, when used properly, death. I could kill you, make you go into a coma by stopping brain signals, cause you to have spastic seizures. Unless you surrender." Sasuke replied with an eerie grin. Yoroi took a swallow. Sakura glanced down at Kakashi's match. She muttered, "Wow, that's one creepy technique." Kakashi gave nod. "Yes, but it is almost like the mystical palm technique, in a way. The mystical palm technique, and the chakra scalpel through different means, can do most of those things. It's just that it is a lightning technique. In fact, that jutsu was the inspiration for my Chidori, along with Rasengan." Sakura faced him. "What's a Rasengan?" Kakashi grinned. "A jutsu invented by one of the greatest men I knew. And one that Naruto probably would love to learn." Sakura grinned. "Yeah, probably. The match goes to Sasuke Uchiha." Sakura grinned. "Okay, Sasuke," she exclaimed. Kakashi grinned. "I'm glad to see you're much more mature about your crush on Sasuke nowadays." Sakura blushed and turned to face him. "What crush on Sasuke? I'm over him now." Kakashi gave an eye roll. "Right." Naruto smiled. "All right, I can go up against Sasuke in the finals, kick his ass, and turn into a Chunin now that he's won, I believe." Next match. Shino Aburame vs Zaku Abumi. Naruto smiled. "This'll be too easy for Shino." "Begin." Zaku looked at Shino, and Shino looked at him. Then Shino saw Zaku covered in wounds. "Zaku-san. You seem injured. I would advise you just forfeit." Zaku growled. He growled, "Kiss my ass." After rolling his eyes, Shino expelled a swarm of insects from his arms. Zaku chuckled. "Idiot, I know all about those bugs." They move super slow, and barely cause any harm. Then a glowing bug zipped past his head, causing his ear to burn. Shino approached him as he screamed. Actually, that is true of most of the Aburame clan. However, by sacrificing an insect and charging it with lightning chakra, they can move incredibly fast in a straight line, and be quite painful. Shino examined Zaku's corpse. Proctor, he seems to be. Then a cloud of dust formed and a wave of wind blew him back. They chuckled loudly. Lightning chakra, huh? Perfect. When the dust settled, Shino was standing against the wall and Zaku was standing. Zaku flashed a crazy smile, because wind beats lightning. He vanished and then resurfaced beside Shino. When he extended his arm, it began to glow with chakra. He yelled, "So long, loser." Shino! Cried Naruto anxiously. Then Kakashi and Shino both grinned. What? Inquired Sakura. Kakashi stated with satisfaction, "You'll see." Shino's hand began to crackle and then glow. Zaku staggered back. What? As bugs began to swarm around him, Shino slowly stumbled to his feet and then held out his palm. Chidori. While being held back by Shino's insects, Zaku staggered back and then froze. As Shino stabbed him, he screamed and blood began to flow. Shino calmly left after removing his hand after a few seconds. Kakashi instantly made Guy appear. You taught him the Chidori? How? Kakashi grinned. Simple. He makes sure his opponent is close, then he puts some Kikai bugs on them, retreats so they are directly in front of him, and starts having them drain their chakra. Then, he just runs in a straight line, and hopes his friends will protect him. It's best to use it only when you are doing a one-on-one battle. Guy gave a headshake. No, I meant, how could you? Why did you? Kakashi looked over at him. He had a lightning element. But isn't that favoritism? Kakashi gave a shrug. Well, I'm also going to teach it to someone else. Guy groaned. You don't mean? Kakashi gave nod. The winner is Aburame Shino. The others gave a courteous clap, but Naruto smiled and cheered. Next match. Kankuro vs Suguru Masumi. He shunshined away after Naruto sighed and made a shadow clone. Naruto said, thanks, as he ate some ramen. Ayame grinned. No problem, Naruto. But, shouldn't you be at your match? Naruto gave a shrug. He stated, my match isn't until later. Ayame gave a nod. Well, alright then. Naruto turned and was met with a startling scene. He said, Ayame, I've got to go. Ayame grinned. She kissed him on the cheek and called, well, good luck at the match, Naruto.kun. After blushing slightly, Naruto turned to leave and rushed to the hot springs. Hey! Stop looking at the women's springs, you lecher. Women began to scream as a tall head of white hair appeared. Frowning, the lecher turned. Come on kid, I was doing my research. Naruto gave a snort. For what? The pervert had been ignoring the child until that point. I'm Jiraiya, legendary Toad Sage and Sannin, and writer of the Icha Icha series. Who the hell or why? 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 He mumbled. Once more, Naruto snorted. Naruto Uzumaki, pervy sage. Naruto then blinked as his memories were given to him by his clone dispelling. It was Sakura's match now that Kankuro had prevailed. He turned Jiraiya away. Shunshin no Jutsu. Jiraiya grinned. He smiled when he thought, he's really a chip off the old block. But Minato's Shunshin was better than that when he was 10. Sakura had already won by the time Naruto arrived, which took 2 minutes because he used a slower Shunshin to save Chakra. Given that Ino was her opponent, he laughed quietly. Tenten vs Temari. Naruto smiled. Go Tenten, he cried out. Naruto claimed to have seen Tenten smile slightly as she appeared to turn her head. Begin. Tenten began with a furious charge at Temari, hurling weapons at breakneck speed. All the weapons bounced off when Temari held the big black object on her back in front of her. Tenten then produced a scroll and slashed her finger, causing the scroll to splatter with blood. Weapons then materialized, and she began tossing them even more quickly than before. Naruto was in awe. He muttered, that's just crazy. Isn't it? Naruto leapt into the air and yelled. He looked over at Lee. How long were you here? Lee gave a shrug. About 5 seconds. Naruto blinked. Weird. Lee grinned. Team Guy is known for having the fastest of things. Neji.san can strike you 32 times before you know it, I can. Well, you'll see, and Tenten.san. She can throw her weapons at a speed of 70 feet per second. That's almost 50 miles an hour. Naruto blinked. Whoa. Lee pivoted. Amazing, right? Naruto gave a headshake. I just realized. You aren't using the metric system. After a face. Fail, Lee stood back up. Then he smiled. Look, it doesn't matter. Well, it looks like Tenten is gaining the lead. Naruto glanced. Temari's cheek was bleeding where a kunai had scraped it. Temari frowned after reaching up to touch it. She then swung the big black object. Naruto's eyebrow went up. He said, a giant fan? After Tenten tossed a few more weapons, Temari swung her fan, and the wind blew them all away. Tenten cursed. Temari smiled. Someone who fights like you do has no chance of beating me, a wind user. After that, Tenten threw 2 scrolls in a circle around her as he leapt into the air. Lee grinned. Temari-san has no chance now. Tenten then began to throw weapons more quickly than before, twin rising dragons. Temari let out a sigh and then swung her fan open a bit more. Tenten swallowed and all the weapons went to him. Fortunately, only a handful struck her, and the majority somehow stopped in midair. Lee blew a whistle. That was miraculous. Naruto's red aura subsided, and he gave a feeble smile. Yeah. Tenten then collapsed, bleeding as she hit the ground with agony. With a smile, Temari approached her and held the fan above her head. She whispered, this next attack will kill you. Her fan swung. Lee immediately leapt in front of Tenten, wanting to save her even though he knew he wouldn't make it. He shut his eyes. Nothing took place. His eyes opened. He and Tenten were facing Naruto, who was still upright and shielding them with his arms. Lee blinked. How? Naruto then passed out. With a moan, Naruto stood up, but then he saw a chain fastened to his chest. What? He asked. He then turned to see that the chain was fastened too. His physique. He took a swallow. Am I dead? Kind of. A figure loomed over Naruto as he turned. Urahara tipped his hat and said, don't worry, you won't be dead for long. My name is Urahara, nice to meet you. Arashi groaned. Great, he thought, it's him. Naruto blinked. What? He seems like a decent guy. Arashi let out a groan. He is a Shinigami. I was almost killed by him once. Naruto laughed. Urahara smiled. Well then, you see, you would be dead, but you have such high spiritual pressure and chakra that you aren't dead for now. However, you will be dead unless... Unless what? Demanded Naruto. Urahara smiled. Unless I stab you through the heart and give you some Shinigami powers. Naruto broke out in a sweat. You're going to stab me through the heart, to bring me back to life. Urahara gave a nod. However, when I do, you'll probably wear Shinigami robes, and you'll have a sword. Probably a huge sword. And, you'll see hollows, and people's souls, and... Naruto yelled, I get it, stab me already, instead. Then a katana went through his heart and into his chest, choking him. Naruto moaned as he stood up and noticed that he was no longer in the arena. Around him were Tenten, Sakura, Hinata, Haku, Anko, and, strangely enough, Temari. He inquired, what happened? With a gasp, Hinata embraced Naruto. You're alive. Sakura gave a snort. More importantly, it's your match, move, Naruto. Sunshining to the arena, where Kiba was cracking his neck, Naruto swallowed. Inazaka Kiba versus Uzumaki Naruto. Kiba smiled, too easy. Begin. With a kunai in hand, Kiba charged at Naruto, but Naruto ducked beneath him, grabbed him with one arm, and threw him against a wall. Naruto snarled. I'm fighting this. Arashi-san. Don't interrupt. He pondered. Arashi complained, and then his strength left him. Then, Kiba's claws struck Naruto in the stomach, causing him to choke. After falling back and skidding to a halt, Naruto threw kunai and charged at Kiba. Akamaru jumped out of his coat as Kiba snorted. Kiba, called out, Beast Human Clone. And Akamaru transformed into his likeness. 4 legs technique. Then, with identical appearances and rapid movements, the 2 Kibas charged at Naruto while he was on all 4s. With a snort, Naruto leapt up into the snake seal. He shouted, Verdant Mountain's violent wind, and all of the kunai he had previously thrown came flying in the direction of Kiba and Akamaru. After they both jumped at Naruto, who averted his gaze, they created a number of shadow clones, and he jumped at them both. Akamaru and Kiba smiled. Dual piercing fang. As the 2 began spinning quickly and slicing through all of the clones in an attempt to reach the real Naruto, who was still on the ground, Naruto swallowed. Got you. The real Naruto then became a cloud of smoke, and Kiba heard kunai land all around him. If they didn't have explosive tags, he wouldn't make kunai land near me, Kiba pondered. Then there was a big explosion, and Kiba was gone when Naruto landed. He took a swallow. Kiba. Then Kiba howled with laughter and sucked him underground. Loser, you thought I was dead? Naruto growled. No, but soon you're gonna be. Then his iris turned yellow and his sclera black. He jumped out of the shattered ground with a massive sword, similar to Zabuza's, that had no holes or semicircles cut out. The blade was twice as long, with a silver flat side and a black edge. In addition, the handle had no crossguard and was 2 feet long. Before the colors switched to a white kimono with a black rope belt, he wore a black kimono with a white rope belt. Kiba staggered back. What? Then there was a loud boom and Naruto was gone. As a sword sliced through the air above him, Kiba swallowed and quickly ducked down. He noticed that Naruto's hair was pale white and sickly gray when he looked up. Naruto smiled before swinging once more, slicing off some of Kiba's hair as he barely avoided it. Hinata watched in horror. That can't be Naruto. Kiba was panting and leaning against the wall when Naruto suddenly materialized in front of him, swinging his sword crazily quickly. Kiba shut his eyes, anticipating his demise. His shoulder was cut by the blade, but his arm was left intact. When Kiba slowly opened his eyes, he saw that Naruto's right eye was largely inverted, save for a few creeping tendrils of black sclera, and that his left eye had turned blue and white. He was panting now, his hair was a weak yellow instead of golden, and his skin was less pale. Then, with the exception of the fact that he was still wearing a kimono, he completely returned to his normal self and collapsed to the ground, panting. Kiba painfully gripped his shoulder, but Naruto then reappeared, slashing the bicep of his other arm and chest. Kiba fell, howling. Winner. Uzumaki Naruto. As everyone applauded and acknowledged his victory, Naruto smiled and raised his hands. And now, a short intermission before Hyuga Hinata vs Hyuga Neji. Naruto smiled before avoiding the spotlight and leaning back in his seat. Fun match, huh? When Naruto saw Urahara standing directly beside him, he screamed. Urahara gestured to him with a box. Dango? Naruto shivered and pointed at him. How did you get there? Urahara gave a shrug. He looked up at the sky and sighed. I walked. Hey, you see that? Naruto glanced. Nothing. No. Urahara gave him a look. He had shed the kimono and was now dressed normally. Urahara let out a sigh, then used his cane to tap him, transforming his clothing into Shinigami robes. Naruto gaped. What is that? Urahara grinned, but her thoughts were deep. He simply changed clothes. His soul wasn't forced out. Strange. Urahara gestured. That is a hollow. You have to kill it by slashing its mask and breaking it. Naruto pivoted. Why me? Urahara leaned back, grinned, and sighed. I am too lazy. With a sigh, Naruto prepared his sword and lunged toward the hollow. With a growl, Naruto swung his sword at the hollow. He had only scratched its arm, which hadn't even bled, but he thought it was pretty strong. After snarling once more, Naruto roared and swung his sword forcefully at the creature's mask. Naruto was left panting after it nearly chipped. Oh no, he thought. The hollow then raised an arm above its head and swung down, resembling a giant lizard. Naruto's eyes were closed. After that, they were opened. In front of him stood a tall, orange-haired teenager brandishing a blood-stained sword nearly as large as Naruto's. Since its arm was now missing, the hollow let out a scream. The teenager let out a sigh. I don't know how long you've been a Shinigami, but you suck. Naruto snarled. Hey, the teenager pivoted. Naruto appeared perplexed and asked, you don't even know Shikai, do you? What? The teenager pivoted. Exactly. My name is Ichigo Kurosaki, but you can refer to me as Kurosaki-san. Naruto gave a snort. What makes you think you can beat that thing? It's tough. With a sigh, Ichigo swung his sword once more, and the hollow was destroyed by a surge of blue energy. He looked over at Naruto. He said icily, that wasn't tough. It's just that you aren't. Naruto growled. Ichigo let out a sigh. For some reason, Urahara-san wants you to come with us to Soul Society to rescue Rukia, although I can't see why. Kazuki Urahara exclaimed with joy, simple. Because he can use chakra, and has the spiritual pressure of 2 Vasto Lord hollows. Naruto's eyebrow went up. What's a Vasto Lord? The most powerful hollow, exclaimed Urahara joyfully. Naruto grinned. Kind of like the thing I thought? Urahara continued to smile as he shook his head. Nope, that was a normal hollow. After those come Jillian Manos, then Ijukas, then Vasto Lords. As Naruto face-failed in midair, Ichigo laughed. You see Naruto, you're pretty pitiful now, but that's because you don't know how to use your immense power. You see, if you could control it better, you'd be a lot stronger. To do that, Imagine trying to compress all of your power. Urahara continued. Naruto let out a sigh. Urahara shrugged and asked, how? No idea, but I'm sure if you talk to your Zanpakuto, you'll learn how. Once more, Naruto arched an eyebrow. Talk to it? It's just a sword. Urahara laughed. Naruto snorted, actually, they're living swords. With a smile, Urahara said, prove it. Sorry, but we have no time. We have to get to a Senkaimon and get to Soul Society now. He stopped grinning. If we don't, Rukia could die there. After freezing, Naruto unfroze. Alright, let's go, after Hinata-chan's match. Naruto was seized by Urahara. Sorry, but there is no time. Then he took a quick step back. The trio reached a tiny store. Urahara smiled and threw his arms in the air. Naruto arched an eyebrow and exclaimed, home sweet home. Since I haven't watched the early episodes of Bleach in a long time, I apologize if this is not canon, but Urahara just opened the door and then opened another hidden trap door inside, revealing a hidden ladder. How are we supposed to get inside of Soul Society, with a small shop like that? Urahara asked. He gave them a look. He jumped down and called, well, come on. Ichigo followed after Naruto, who shrugged. Naruto gaped. There was a huge subterranean room there, and Urahara was talking to this large, mustache-wearing man. 3 more people approached Naruto and Ichigo as he continued to look around. First, there was this enormous man who appeared to be in his 20s. Naruto swallowed and said, hello, my name is Sato Yasutora. Uzumaki Naruto. Nice to meet you, Uzumaki-san. Naruto turned to see a girl with amazing breasts who was about his height. He took a swallow. Hey, she's more beautiful than anyone in Konoha, wow. Naruto glanced at the third individual, who was fiddling with his glasses. Who's he? Naruto looked around, perplexed, and said, his name is Ishida Uryu. The girl you just talked to is Orihime Inoue. Who said that? I did. Naruto noticed a black cat when he looked down. The cat said, my name is Yoruchi. Pleasure to meet you. Naruto gazed at it for a short while. He yelled, a talking cat. Ichigo was about to say something sarcastic as he started to perspire when Urahara shouted. The group turned to see Urahara waving at them and a big gate next to him. Okay. We're done. They exclaimed. Okay guys, just run through there, and you'll get to Soul Society. Urahara stopped Naruto as he ran toward it after shrugging. You have to become a Shinigami first, he said, turning him into a Shinigami by tapping him with the bottom of his cane. Then Naruto collapsed. How the hell am I supposed to carry this huge sword? He yelled. Urahara grinned. Simple. You'll have to pump some spirit energy into your arms, and it'll feel weightless. With a sigh, Naruto followed Urahara's instructions and attempted lifting once more. Urahara smiled as he grunted, which she interpreted as, thank you. Well, everyone jump in, lousy bastards, making a huge machine that cleans out the gate. Ichigo muttered as they all jumped out, screaming, and the gate closed behind them. But, good idea, Inoue. Orihime reddened. Naruto turned and said, oh, it was nothing, Kurosaki-kun. Yoruichi sighed and asked, so, where are we? Yoruichi pointed with a paw and said, Rukongai. We have to get inside of Soul Society this way. Naruto smiled. He shouted, then let's go, while simultaneously sprinting forward and shining. Yoruichi thought, that's strange, those aren't flash steps, but she ran as fast as she could and followed. Ichigo shouted, wait, damn it, and started to run, followed by Ishida and Sato. Orihime gave a small smile before following. Naruto eventually came upon what appeared to be a large gate. Naruto smiled. He yelled, okay, Soul Society, here I come, and jumped at it. He bounced off something after that. With a moan, he stood up, stunned. He saw a giant with an equally enormous axe when he looked up. The giant laughed. You stupid country folk. No one can get past me. Naruto smiled. Really? Then he swung his sword and charged at the enormous giant. Naruto quickly blocked the giant's axe swing, but the spirit pressure continued to push him back, and he grunted as he tried to avoid being pushed away. The giant chuckled. No one can possibly defeat Jidanbo, keeper of this gate. Naruto laughed inanely. Yeah? He then exerted more force, causing Jidanbo's axe to fly out of his grasp. Jidanbo frowned. He picked up the axe once more and exclaimed, well, I just had a loose grip with it. After rolling his eyes, Naruto grabbed a shuriken and hurled it. It gave Jidanbo a quick glance, and Naruto frowned. Oh no, He pondered. Then he made a seal and charged at Jidenbu. Shadow Clone Jutsu. He exclaimed violently. 20 of his clones appeared and all of them flew at Jidenbu. The madly swung around, missing them all, and Jidenbu's eyes widened. Each of them hit Jidanbo, causing several minor wounds to appear on his body. After howling, Jidanbo collapsed to one knee. Before Jidanbo swung his enormous hand around and destroyed every clone, Naruto smiled. After making a grimace, Naruto leapt at Jidanbo once more. Jidanbo merely grinned, took out a second axe, and swung both of them. After yelping, Naruto blocked both with a sword swing but was thrown back against a wall. He snarled, stumbled to his feet, and charged once more, swinging more forcefully. Jidanbo merely chuckled and deflected the blade. Yoruichi shouted, "Naruto, don't fight him." Naruto pivoted. "What?" Then he was slammed harder into a wall. Yoruichi broke out in a sweat. It shouldn't have said that, Yoruichi realized, and said, "He's too powerful." After snarling, Naruto collapsed onto his face. Oh no. His Zanpakuto then began to glow. The thoughts of Naruto. Perplexed, Naruto glanced around. Then he noticed someone approaching him and asked, "Where am I?" The individual was tall, wearing a cloak that was orange and black, with red fur at the ends of the sleeves and a hood that completely concealed its face. In one hand, it held a long chain that was attached to a blade. In the other, it was wrapped around a different figure wearing the same attire and holding another blade. The blades had black sides and orange edges, and only the chain was present instead of a crossguard or hilt. Both of them appeared to be strangled by the chains they were holding. Naruto stared in wonder at them. "Wow!" Urashi shouted, "Hey, I'm at least 3 times as awesome as them," from a distance. Ignoring him, the figures moved in Naruto's direction. Both figures said, "You are in need of more power?" He whispered, so that only Naruto could hear. "Good. Our name is..." Naruto nodded slowly. After that, it began to fade into the wind. "Use us well, Naruto-san." Jidanbo was laughing while Naruto remained motionless and flat on his face. With concern, Orihime exclaimed, "Uzumaki-san." After chuckling, Jidanbo turned to face Ichigo. "Are you next, Shinigami?" Actually, gazing down at Naruto, whose Zanpakuto was glowing, Jidanbo gasped. As his wounds began to heal, Naruto smiled. Naruto leapt at Jidanbo after raising his Zanpakuto into the air. Cut through heaven and earth. Yoruichi let out a gasp. A Shikai? Kamikaze. Naruto's enormous sword glowed a fierce white, then burst with reishi. Slowly, the gleaming reishi turned a dark black and burnt orange, and the light faded to reveal a large sword, though not as large as before. In reality, there were 2 large swords, each about 2.5 feet long but 3 inches wide, and Naruto wasn't holding them by the handle. In fact, there wasn't a handle. When the orange-edged, black-backed sword ended, there was no hilt or crossguard, just a 3-foot black chain. Naruto gazed at it in horror. "What the devil? How am I going to cut anything with this?" he grumbled. "I can only swing it by the chain, so if the blade is dull enough, it will simply bounce off him." Then Jidanbo smiled, saying, "Excellent, then you little Rukongai runt, I'll crush you." Orihime screamed once more as he swung his blade downward. After a loud crash, a massive dust cloud appeared, and Jidanbo chuckled, saying, "Pathetic." Yes, it was a weak blow. Jidanbo's gaze expanded. Standing in a crater, smiling and unhurt, Naruto held the blade above his head with the chain. Ishida asked feebly, "How?" Naruto grinned and said, "Apparently, Kamikaze's chain can become really stiff and hard, like a handle." Then, roughly 300 feet away from Jidanbo, he leapt back and up and swung his sword by the chain. Jidanbo's eyes widened as Kamikaze's chain stretched over 300 feet and shattered his axe. Jidanbo looked down in shock, and then Naruto appeared directly behind him, swinging both Kamikazes. Jidanbo yelled, blocking them with his other axe, which broke instantly. Naruto then shunshined away and swung his sword once more, this time causing it to glow with black and orange reishi. Chikage Shippu. Gale of the Thousand Shadows. Jidanbo was struck by a wave of orange spirit energy with a thick red and black sliver in the center. Think of Getsuga Tensho. Honestly, Yoruichi was amazed. He would be stronger than Yamamoto and a Vasto Lord combined if he could control that reishi, but it looks like he can't really control that Ryotsu. If he could, that wouldn't be a wave, but just a denser slicing attack. Jidanbo shut his eyes, anticipating his demise. Getsuga Tensho. He felt several tiny cuts appear on his back and shoulders, and he grunted. Weakly, he opened his eyes, wondering how he had survived. He blinked. "We aren't trying to kill him, Naruto, we're just trying to get inside," Ichigo, who was standing in front of him with a steaming sword and a more scowling expression than usual, said. He shouted. Jidanbo only recalled that before he passed out. "Now how are we going to get inside?" Ichigo moaned. Naruto smiled and said, "Easy." He swung his sword once more after that. "Shikage Shippu," he yelled, swinging his sword, which hit the gate, and exploded on impact. Naruto dropped to the ground, only to see that the gate had only cracked a little. Naruto gaped. "What? Nice," Ichigo said with a chuckle before turning to face Yoruichi. Yoruichi-san. "Huh? How can we enter?" he inquired, and Yoruichi shrugged. "No idea, but hold on, I have a thought, however, you might not enjoy it." "Why wouldn't I like this?" Naruto asked, surveying the field where they were hiking. "I take it we're simply going to cross to another gate." "No," Yoruichi responded, "if we did, a captain would probably simply repel us. Thus, we're taking a slightly unconventional approach." "What does that mean?" Perplexed, Naruto inquired. Ishida muttered, "If you don't already know, you won't want to." Yoruichi said softly, "Well, we're almost there." Naruto glanced around. "Nearly where?" he asked, then turned to face the future. "What is that, in-game?" Yoruichi turned to them as he shouted. It was shaped like two big arms and fists, and Naruto gaped as she said, "My friend Kukaku's house." I sincerely hope Yoruichi-san is aware of her actions. As Yoruichi approached Kukaku and said, "Hello, Kukaku," Naruto looked around, bored. Softly, Yoruichi said, "I have a request." Kukaku burst out laughing. "Obviously. What on earth is it?" Yoruichi hurried the final sentence, muttering, "Well, we need you to launch us into Soul Society." "Sure," Kukaku said, laughing once more, "but you'll need to use my spirit orbs." Naruto faced them and said, "What?" Impatiently, Kukaku turned to face him and said, "What I said was, you." She looked at Ichigo and Naruto and froze, whispering, "You look a lot like Kaien." Naruto arched an eyebrow. "What?" With a quick shake of her head, Kukaku said, "Nothing. We need to get to the training room, so hurry up." With a shrug, Naruto trailed behind her, then the others. Gazing at the crystal ball he was holding, Naruto asked, "What is this?" Kukaku murmured. "Just put in some spirit energy, and it will make a protective orb around you." "How?" a man said, "Like this." "My name is Ganju," Naruto said, turning to face the man who was enclosed in a blue sphere. With joy, he said. After saying, "My name is Naruto," Naruto attempted to infuse the orb with spirit energy. "Nothing." Kukaku moaned as he tried again after swearing. "All right, let's check in on the others." She turned to face Orihime, who had a blue sphere around him. "Very nice." She turned to face Ishida, who was wearing a thin blue sphere. Probably a personality issue. Oh well. Then Sato. "Good, good." Then Ichigo. She gave an eye roll. She yelled, "Yubaka, you can't even make one of those." Naruto chuckled before Kukaku faced him. "Don't laugh, idiot, you can't either." She let out a moan. Her eyes suddenly opened. "Oh, I know why you guys suck at this." Naruto's eyebrow went up. She yelled, "You guys have way too much reishi, so all we have to do is tire you out." Naruto gave her a look. "How? Simple. Fight each other," she exclaimed with joy. "When you two are hella tired, come back in, and we'll send you to Soul Society." Ichigo and Naruto exchanged ferocious smiles. With pleasure, they exclaimed before rushing at one another. Kukaku screamed, "Not in here, idiots," and kicked them out. Then she drew deeply from her pipe. After dusting themselves off, Naruto and Ichigo slowly stood up and retrieved their weapons. With a roar, Naruto charged at Ichigo. While Zangetsu was still wrapped, Ichigo smirked and swung it, knocking Naruto back. Zangetsu's wrappings gradually came off, and they turned back to one another before charging forward and brandishing their swords. After the blades collided, each of them released a spirit pressure, which bounced off the others to create a massive wave of orange and blue energy. Ishida and Orihime ran out quickly. "Kurosaki-kun. Naruto-san," she exclaimed in concern. The energy waves then formed a sphere around Ichigo and Naruto before exploding. Despite their severe wounds and scratches, both were able to stand. Getsuga Tensho. Shikage Shippu. The two assaults collided, then exploded once more with greater ferocity. As they charged at one another, Naruto and Ichigo screamed and their blades struck one another, cutting deeply and bloodily. Naruto made a seal as they winced and flew backwards. Shadow Clone Jutsu! He exclaimed violently. Most of the clones were destroyed when Ichigo angrily swung Zangetsu around by the wrappings. Naruto swung his sword angrily. That's it, Shikage Hari. Then Ichigo was bloodied by a series of tiny bursts of orange-red spirit energy that came from Kamikaze. That's enough, yelled Kukaku. I said to fight, not to kill each other. Get back inside, now. After exchanging glares, Ichigo and Naruto entered. Ichigo and Naruto both created a sphere with ease by inserting some reishi into their orbs. Good. Now, we'll get into the Soul Society. Naruto gave her a look. How? Kukaku smiled. Ganju. Hi. Then Naruto fell as if the ground were trembling. He opened his mouth wide. A gigantic cannon was emerging from the earth. Flatly, Naruto said, no way. Kukaku shouted up at Naruto, sorry, but you're already at it. She then stabbed the ground with her sword and began muttering some words to Kido. With a growl, Naruto gripped the orb and gave it as little spirit energy as possible. He tightened his jaw. As the orb was hurled high into the sky, he continued to scream. The call came from Yoruichi, brace for impact. Impact with what? Cried Naruto. There's a large barrier around Soul Society, that is made of spirit particles that could break this shield if we can't maintain it. Naruto screamed, how do you know this, you crazy cat? Then, with a dull thud, the big sphere that encircled Naruto, Ichigo, Sato, Orihime, Ganju, and Yoruichi struck the barrier, rising to the surface and causing ripples. The orb then began to move slowly through the barrier. Orihime flinched. Kurosaki.kun, Naruto.san, you're both adding too much reishi. Ichigo appeared frightened, but I'm using the least I can. Naruto gave a nod. Me too. Yoruichi took a swallow. Ganju. What happens when one of these breaks? It violently explodes, and would send us flying. Why? The 6 of them flew off in 3 different directions when the orb exploded. Orihime looked around and moaned. She exclaimed, wow, that fall hurt a lot less than I expected. From beneath her, Ishida thought, I hate my life. Ichigo cast a weary glance around. He complained, that hurt. He noticed Ganju standing beside him. Hey, come on. After falling, Naruto stood up. He looked to his side and muttered, whoa, that hurt. Yoruichi gave a shrug. Well, let's get going. Not so fast, Ryoka. Naruto pivoted. Who are you guys? Halt. Ichigo pivoted. What? Who are you guys? Hey. Stop right there, Orihime appeared perplexed. Who are you? The man laughed. My name is Jirobo Akanzaka, puny Ryoka. The other man chuckled. No idea what your name is, you orange-haired freak, but I'm Akaku Madarane, 11th Division 3rd seat, and this is Yumachika Yasugawa, 11th Division 5th seat. The first man let out a sigh. Wow, that other man is hideous. Ganju snarled. Hey, of the two, the taller one grinned. My name is Rangaku Matsumoto, 10th Division Lieutenant. The shorter one let out a sigh. My name is Toshiro Hitsugaya, 10th Division Captain. With a smile, Naruto withdrew the 2 kamikazes from behind him. Well then, I guess this shouldn't be too hard, they're only a captain and a lieutenant. Yoruichi let out a sigh. Naruto, captain is the highest rank. Naruto broke out in a sweat. Oh, then this could be a problem. Ichigo gave an eye roll. He moaned, shut it Baldy. Akaku's eyes appeared to protrude from his cranium. He yelled, Baldy, I'll kill you, grow, Hizukamaru. Then his katana transformed into a huge spear and began to glow. Ichigo smiled. So, you know Shikai, huh? Then he opened Zangetsu's package, then I won't have to hold back as much. Akaku smiled. Don't get cocky, kid, she exclaimed as the 2 rushed toward one another. With a sigh, Ganju let out a yelp as a Zanpakuto passed by his face. Sorry, but someone as ugly and foul as you simply shouldn't exist, especially since you were a Ryoka. Yumachika replied simply. Ganju snarled. Hey, he uttered haltingly. Ichigo used a powerful swing of Zangetsu, but Hizukamaru was able to counter it with ease. Akaku gave a spooky smile. Nice try, kid. Ichigo gasped as the spear swung around and sliced his cheek. How? He inquired. Hizukamaru works as a normal spear, but also can change into a 3-section staff. Akaku exclaimed. Ichigo smiled. So your Shikai has a special ability, huh? Ichigo lifted Zangetsu and smiled. Then I guess I won't have to hold back. Getsuga Tensho. In addition to destroying the majority of the nearby buildings, the ensuing explosion struck Akaku and pushed him almost a kilometer away. The head of Kenpachi Zaraki abruptly leapt into the air. Yachiru said, "What is it, Ken?" "Chan." Kenpachi smiled. "I get the feeling there's someone strong around here." "With Naruto." Uncomfortably, Naruto grabbed Kamikaze. "Hey, Yoruichi-san. Do you know how strong these guys are?" Yoruichi gave a nod. "You could probably win against the woman, but you'd better leave the boy to me." Naruto gave her a perplexed look. What could a cat do against a Shinigami? Yoruichi twitched his eye. "Never mind, just go." After nodding, Naruto and Rangaku shunshined away. Naruto let out a sigh. "I could never hurt an innocent lady," he replied. Then his cheek developed a thin cut. He squinted his eyes. He was then punched in the stomach after saying, "Okay. I'll accept that." He said, a little irritated, "I can live with that." Naruto's eyes widened as Rangaku swung her foot back. He quickly caught her foot before it hit his groin, then snatched one kamikaze with his other hand. Rangaku grabbed her Zanpakuto and flipped backwards. Growl, Hineka. It then transformed into ash and flew in Naruto's direction. As the ash flew at him, Naruto quickly seized the other kamikaze. He shouted, "Shikage Shippu," and a reishi wave struck the ash, destroying it completely. Rangaku blinked. "Wow, were you like, a former captain or something? Cause that Ryotsu amount is, like, as high as Captain Zaraki's." Naruto gave a headshake. "Nah, but I'm also a Shinigami." Rangaku said, "Well, you know Bankai, right?" Naruto's eyebrow went up. "Huh?" Rangaku broke out in a sweat. She said, "Okay." She then lunged at Naruto, who quickly raised his sword to deflect an attack from the Hineka, who had not yet been released. Naruto's eyebrow went up. "So, you're a lieutenant. I don't see why Yoruichi wouldn't let me fight that kid if you lieutenants are only this strong." "Hey," whimpered Rangaku. "I'm not weak." Rangaku grinned behind Naruto as his eyes widened and a cut appeared on his back. "I was just waiting for you to let your guard down." Naruto whirled around. He shouted, "Shikage Hari," and swung his sword in a circle, sending reishi needles flying out of it. Then Rangaku's sword transformed into 100 tiny ash shields that obstructed each needle. After snarling, Naruto turned away and swung at Rangaku. Behind him, she vanished and then reappeared. She exclaimed, "Wow, that Shunpo sucks." Naruto pivoted. "It's not Shunpo." Then he cut her forehead with his sword once more. Naruto moved behind her and slammed a fist into her back, disappearing once more as Rangaku swallowed. With a scream, Rangaku collapsed to the floor. Naruto then swung his sword once more. Shikage Hari. This time, he made needles that only bruised her and kept her unconscious because they had a lot less spirit energy. Naruto smiled. That wasn't too hard. "Really?" Naruto turned to see another person, and his eyes grew wide. "Who are you?" The man gave him a chilly look. He said coldly, "I don't tell my name to inferiors." Naruto smiled and swung his swords as he charged at him. The man just lifted one hand, grabbed both kamikazes, and broke their chains. Naruto looked at the man and swallowed. He was 6 feet 3 inches and slender, with dark orange eyes. He had a thin bony line along the side of his face. His black hair was falling over his eyes, and he appeared to be wearing a form-fitting white Shinigami uniform. With a quiet chuckle, Naruto struck the man with his head. As the man's eyes widened, he bounded back, his razor-thin lips dripping blood. He had a glove on one hand, and Naruto saw that the sleeve of that arm was longer than the other. With a hollow laugh, the man abruptly vanished. A fist struck Naruto's stomach, forcing him against a wall and causing his eyes to pop open. Naruto snarled. He screamed, "Shikage Shippu," and a surge of energy erupted. Huge cuts were made all over the man's body, and his eyes widened as the blast engulfed him. Then the man gave a quiet laugh. "Fine, I'll tell you my name. It's Hisoka Sasaki. Farewell, Uzumaki Naruto. Until we meet again," he replied. Then he was gone. Naruto snarled. "Get back here. Who are you yelling at, Naruto?" Yoruichi was standing next to Naruto when he turned around. Naruto snarled. He pointed to Rangaku and remarked, "After I beat her, some stupid-looking guy started fighting me." Yoruichi's eyebrows went up. "You beat her? I expected you to not lose too badly, so I could beat her." Naruto growled. He shouted, "Hey, how'd you even beat that captain anyways?" Yoruichi grinned. That's for me to know and you to not yet find out. Hey, Arioka. Let's get him. A swarm of Shinigami charged at Sato as he turned around. The biggest of them chuckled. This is only going to take a minute. It was Sato who said, "You're wrong." The Shinigami's eyebrows went up. Then Sato began to glow with reishi, and a black and magneto liquid poured from his palm. This won't even take a minute. The screams of the Shinigami could be heard for miles. Ishida raised his spectacles to his face. Well then, hello, Jirobo-san. If you would just let us through. Nice try, Ryoka, but you can't be let through, Jirobo chuckled. With a sigh, Ishida began to assemble reishi in his hand. Alright then. There was a big, heavy bow in his hands. Then we shall force our way through. Jirobo chuckled before uttering a word that caused his Zanpakuto to transform into a collection of flying blades. He swung the hilt at Ishida while laughing. Fool! I can use all of these blades at once to attack you. There's no way you can possibly win. Then the blades broke apart. Jirobo let out a gasp. Ishida was grinning a little and his bow was steaming a little. Ishida let out a sigh. Come on, Orihime. He's beaten. Jirobo growled and lunged furiously at Orihime. 2 arrows entered him, choking him. He gave a desperate gasp. I just took away your Shinigami powers, Jirobo-san. That's what you get for attempting to harm a lady. How unchivalrous. Ishida replied with a scowl. He stepped on him calmly as he passed. Good day. Ichigo left icily until he heard someone moan. Wait. Ichigo pivoted. He said to Akaku, What? You didn't come here alone, did you? Asked the man. Ichigo gave a headshake. Why? Akaku gave a contemplative nod. Well, then who would you say is the strongest of your group? Ichigo's gaze shifted to the clouds. Ichigo said, Probably. Me. Akaku gave a nod. Well, then know this. My captain loves fighting. He loves fighting strong people, so if you're as strong as you say, he will find you, and he might just kill you. Ichigo was shunpo-ing as quickly as he could, asking Rukia where she was and occasionally beating up a couple of Shinigami. He had to knock them out and move on because no one wanted to tell him. Damn it, she's dead if I don't find her soon, he thought angrily. Then he heard someone laughing and yelled as he was struck in the back. Hey, you, Shinigami. Ichigo spun around to find a giant man brandishing a chipped-edged sword. He's taller than Chad, oh my Kami, he pondered. Then a little girl with pink hair appeared behind the man and said, Ken-chan, are you gonna kill him? Ichigo's eyebrow went up. A girl? He inquired. The giant man chuckled. I'm Kenpachi Zaraki, captain of the 11th Division, and this is my lieutenant. Ichigo staggered back after swallowing. Like only he could, Kenpachi smiled. I've heard you're a pretty tough opponent. With caution, Ichigo withdrew Zanjetsu, but Zaraki burst out laughing. Hell, don't worry. If you're as strong as I've heard, you'll live. In fact, I'll let you cut me first. Wherever you want. Ichigo blinked. Is this a ruse? However, the young girl leapt off Zaraki's back as he opened his arms wide. Ichigo took a deep breath and swung his sword as he charged forward. Getsuga Tensho. Ichigo screamed and slammed into a wall after being blasted back by a massive wave of reishi. He noticed a tiny, barely bleeding scratch on Kenpachi Zaraki's chest when the light finally cleared and he looked up. Then Zaraki smiled and burst out laughing. Now this is going to be fun. Yachiru gave a headshake. I'll explain later. Kenny, don't kill him, K? He's kinda cute. With a sigh, Kenpachi dashed forward at a speed Ichigo had never witnessed before. Ichigo quickly raised Zanjetsu, but he was struck by Kenpachi's sword, causing him to fall to his knees and bleed from his hands. After giving a grunt, Ichigo just managed to push Kenpachi back a foot before he collapsed once more. Kenpachi yelled, Damn it kid, you're stronger than this. He took a step back. Get your ass up. We have work to do. Naruto was furiously speaking to himself. The reason Yoruichi stayed behind was to search for Rukia, but she had clearly not yet located her. After that, he was struck from behind and fell to the ground. Dazed by the blow, he asked groggily, what was that? Then he was shunpo'd by 2 guys. One had a 69 tattoo on his cheek, and the other had long, blonde hair in an emo cut. Naruto got to his feet. Who are those individuals? No idea, but they are each stronger than the last lieutenant you faced. Minato warned. Be careful. Come on, we can take them. Just use shadow clones, Urashi snorted. Huh, I meant to make over 100. What happened? Naruto blinked after nodding and making a hand seal, which caused about 10 clones to appear. 2 things, moaned Arashi. First of all, my chakra is only as strong as your father's. Second, you can't make a ton of clones because of your freaking Shinigami transformation. Naruto scowled. Great. Then the two men in front of him extended their swords. Raise your head, Waisuke. Reap, Kazushini. Naruto staggered backwards. Whoa. The two lieutenants then swung their strange swords at him, one of them hurling a sickle with a chain fastened to it. Naruto swung his sword quickly. Shikage Shippu. The wave diverted the sickle away from Naruto and pushed the blonde one back. Naruto smiled before the blade reappeared and cut his cheek. The blonde then swung Wabazuki and Shunpyo'd behind Naruto. Naruto grunted after swiftly blocking it with one of the kamikazes. It feels heavier, my blade. The blonde took a quick step back. Naruto snarled, who are you guys? The blonde gave him a downcast look. Izuru Kira, 3rd Division Lieutenant. Slowly, the other cracked his neck. Shuhei Hisagi, 9th Division Lieutenant. Naruto swore ferociously before launching himself at Kira while threateningly swinging his swords. Kira merely lifted Wabazuki, and the kamikazes doubled in size when they struck it. Naruto let out a moan, oh no. Then Shuhei hurled Kazushini at Naruto, who shuddered as the force passed through his body and barely managed to block it. Then Shuhei and Izuru disappeared inexplicably. When Naruto quickly unleashed his Ryotsu, the surrounding buildings all but exploded. Suddenly, Izuru and Shuhei emerged, gasping. They both had the same thought. Yamamoto. Sama's Ryotsu is almost as powerful as that one. After gasping for air, Naruto got to his feet and picked up the kamikazes. He thought, they're getting heavy. After struggling to lift them, he rushed towards Kira and Shuhei while frantically swinging both kamikazes. He received a deep cut across his chest and choked. Shuhei let out a sigh. Nice try, kid, but we're lieutenants. And even though your spirit pressure is high, your technique sucks. Minato laughed. And I'm here to help. Then Naruto began to glow with reishi and chakra, and his warm cerulean eyes once more transformed into water as seen through ice feet. Then he tightened his hold on the kamikazes and hurried over to swing one at Izuru. Izuru merely raised his sword, but Minato vanished at that moment. After blinking, Izuru felt a big but shallow cut on his back erupt in a brief stream of blood. Shuhei trembled. It's clear that this man is captain level. We're not going to succeed. After shouting, Izuru, let's go, Shuhei grabbed Izuru and quickly moved away. Then, just as a certain black cat approached him, Naruto gradually returned to his normal self. Come on, I found Rukia, but Ichigo's in trouble, so you have to save him. Naruto let out a grunt. Well, I don't exactly know where he is. Then, from nearly a mile away, there was a massive explosion of reishi, dust, and gravel, some of which struck Naruto. He turned abruptly. What the hell? As Zangetsu was gradually pushed back by Kenpachi's blade, Ichigo cursed. According to Kenpachi, come on. You're better than this. After inhaling, Ichigo pushed Kenpachi back and slashed him across the torso once more while shoving his reishi into his arms. As the blood ran, Kenpachi smiled. Great. Ichigo had already given Kenpachi 10 cuts, including that one. Then Kenpachi burst out laughing. Well then. He touched his eye patch. I guess. He began to peel it off slowly. I won't need this. His Ryotsu then blew up. Ichigo began to literally suffocate as it grew so big. Oh no. How did he do it? He thought. When he was able to breathe again, he tightened his hold on Zangetsu. Kenpachi's reishi was gradually pushed back as his slowly rose. Unbeknownst to him, a white fluid began to seep across his face and harden into a mask of bone. Then he charged at Kenpachi, who simultaneously charged at Ichigo. For the first time in her memory, Yachiru was clearly afraid of the spirit energy in the air. Happy, Kenpachi yelled, come on kid, show me what ya got. Ichigo shouted, Getsuga Tensho, to keep the attack in Zangetsu. There was a violent clash between the two blades. The majority of Seirei then appeared to be rocked by a terrible explosion, which vaporized every building within 100 meters of it in addition to the nearby buildings that were leveled. Ichigo and Kenpachi were both standing when the bright light subsided, but they were completely covered in blood. Then, as Kenpachi's sword broke, Ichigo fell to the ground. As Yachiru emerged from hiding, Kenpachi grinned slightly. That was the first time I like losing, he said. Naruto then lunged in their direction, squirmed, and grabbed Ichigo. Damn it. He began to murmur. Hold on, Ichigo-san. He shunned away after that. Bored, Kenpachi watched him, then he fell down too. After a short while, Orihime gave a little scream. She cried out, "Kurosaki-kun." As she turned to face Ichigo, Naruto took a deep breath. "Yeah. You have any idea how to heal him?" Orihime nodded and then called forth two beings that resembled fairies, who began healing Ichigo right away. Naruto surveyed his surroundings. "Hey, where's that one guy, Ishida?" Orihime blinked. "Ishida? I don't know, but I'm sure he's fine." Mayuri laughed as Ishida screamed and fled. "I haven't gotten to vivisect a human in a while. Don't worry, I'll make sure to use any spare anesthesia I might have." After giving it some thought, Orihime shrugged. "Well, I'm sure he can't be in any worse shape than Ichigo is now." "Yes, Nemu, suffocate him like that to knock him out. You're a freaking lunatic." Then, while Orihime was speaking, Yoruichi appeared beside the three of them. "I found Rukia, come on." Orihime began to object, saying, "But, Ichigo's still injured," until Ichigo got up and grinned slightly. "I'm fine, Orihime. But I am surprised you cared so much about me." Orihime became red in the face and began stuttering something that would have worried any friend. Ichigo smiled. "Lead the way, Yoruichi." At that moment, Naruto frowned upon realizing that Ichigo was 5 inches taller than him. Then, followed by Ichigo and Naruto, Yoruichi began to leap and flash forward. After a minute of silence, Naruto noticed the enormous prison where Rukia was being held. Whoa. When he looked down, he saw a bridge with 4 guards leading a very short girl across it. "Rukia!" Ichigo screamed. Rukia raised her head. Ichigo, she muttered to herself. A 5th man then emerged from the darkness and gazed up at them. His grin changed to a frown, but it was still eerily eerie. Jin whispered, "What are they doing here?" He sighed, grinned once more, and aimed his sword at Yoruichi, Ichigo, and Naruto. "Shoot to kill, Shinso." Then, Shinso shot at Ichigo and Naruto at shunpo speeds. Ichigo swung Zangetsu to block the attack as Naruto flinched, expecting to be hit down. Jin Ichimaru scowled. He turned and said, "Eh?" In his peculiar yet endearing accent, he said, "Hey, Byakuya-san. It's that one Ryoka from the human realm. And I'd be willing to bet he killed Aizen-san." After giving him a nod, the man turned to look at Ichigo, Naruto, and Yoruichi. Ichigo swung Zangetsu away after swung Shinso away. Getsuga Tensho. Ichimaru was struck by a wave of reishi in the shape of a crescent, but he only held his sword in front of himself. The majority of the wave encircled him, but some struck him. He said dryly, "Ouch." Rukia was expecting an embrace or something when Ichigo suddenly bounded down towards the bridge, but instead he turned to Byakuya and gestured Zangetsu in his direction. A tall, red-haired man then jumped in front of them. Ichigo snarled, "You." The man smiled. "Yes, me." "Who?" asked Naruto, perplexed. The red-headed person said, "Abarai Renji, Lieutenant." After that, he lunged toward Ichigo and swung his sword wildly before Zangetsu stopped him. Roar. Zabumeru. Ichigo felt a tiny cut appear on his cheek as the blade changed into a bladed whip. "Chain thing. Damn it," muttered Ichigo. Getsuga Tensho. Zabumeru was blown away by the blast, but Renji was not much affected because it was so weak. Renji then ducked and sliced Ichigo's quadricep in retaliation for Ichigo's furious swing. Ichigo gave Renji a bloody lip and kicked him back a yard or so after frowning even harder. Ichigo then made another swing, but Renji blocked it and punched him in the jaw, knocking him back into a cart. Ichigo snarled before charging at Renji, both of them simultaneously swinging their swords. "Die, damn it." Naruto opened his eyes. Was it a dream? He looked around and sat up. "My head hurts, Kami," he said, glancing around. A hot spring. He pondered. Crawling to it, he took a sip of the water. A cut on his forehead healed after he shuddered. After smiling, Naruto began slurping up the water as if it were his last. "You're not required to drink the water, you know. You can simply relax in it." A black cat caught Naruto's attention. "Oh, Yoruichi. Hello." He looked around and said, "Are you aware of our location?" "It's a certain training place I used to go to." Naruto gave a nod. "How did I end up here?" Slowly blinking, Yoruichi said, "I carried you, Ichigo, and Renji here." With a laugh, Naruto said, "How could a cat carry us?" Yoruichi grinned and said, "Easy. I simply needed to return to my former state." Yoruichi then began to glow and grow, and before Naruto knew it, he was staring at a woman who was incredibly tanned, incredibly hot, and well endowed. who, incidentally, was also nude. Yoruichi laughed, and Naruto gaped at her for a moment before being flung away by a geyser of nosebleed blood. A few hours later, Ichigo and Renji were beside Naruto, both still unconscious, as he lay in the hot spring, staring up at the ceiling. He sighed and took a deep breath. Yoruichi mentioned that they would begin training for something called Bankai? He shrugged. Yoruichi then passed by, purring, "Ooh, those hot springs look nice." Naruto nodded. "Yeah, they really are." With a smile, Yoruichi said, "Then, surely you won't mind if I join you." Naruto gave an inattentive nod. "Wait, don't come in," he said, covering his eyes after they had suddenly opened. He screamed. "Why not?" A more manly voice answered. A black cat was in the springs with Naruto when he opened his eyes. Ichigo looked around, moaned, and cracked his neck, saying, "Oh, hey Yoruichi." Renji then stood up, and Ichigo and Renji both jumped back down after standing up angrily and looking down to see that neither was wearing anything. "Okay, you see, Ichigo, Naruto, soon we'll start on your Bankai training." Renji laughed. "If you're just starting Bankai training, you'll have no chance of getting Bankai in time to save Ruki." Angry, Ichigo turned to Yoruichi and said, "What the hell is Bankai anyway?" Blinking, Naruto said, "Guys, is there a problem? What made you abruptly stop speaking?" He turned to Yoruichi and then to Ichigo and Renji, who were both frozen and had their jaws lowered. Then he saw Yoruichi naked, no longer in cat form, and a stream of blood poured out of his nose. "Daammmnnyouu." He flew into the cavern wall as he screamed. After taking a deep breath, Naruto relaxed, assuming that Yoruichi was personally training him because she had vanished a short time ago with Ichigo. Naruto blushed briefly as Arashi laughed and said, "Oh yeah, personally training him's one way to put it." "Pervert," he muttered half spoken. "Arashi, you're really starting to turn into one of Naruto's bad influences." Arashi growled. "Are you serious? I haven't spoken to him much since the 3rd chapter. I believe that every good story should at least once break the 4th wall." Naruto's eyebrow went up. He said out loud, "What are you talking about? What's a chapter?" Minato grinned. "That's something you'll discover as you get older." Naruto sighed. "I'm pretty sure I've already learned the things I learn when I'm older." Minato sighed after sweating. Somewhere. Ichigo turned red as he looked up at Yoruichi, who was grinning sexily and frighteningly. "Come on, Ichigo-kun." She purred as she slowly undressed. Then Ichigo blinked, saying, "We can't?" "Why not?" Yoruichi asked, raising an eyebrow. "Curious," she said. Ichigo sighed, "Because our dumb writer is too lazy to ask someone else to write it, and he prefers writing fight scenes to writing lemons." Yoruichi also sighed, saying, "So we'll have to skip ahead in time?" Ichigo gave a nod. "Yes, unless one of our readers is kind enough to write a lemon, and, I don't know, private message it to Psychopath 123 or something." "Fine, but next time." Yoruichi sighed even more involuntarily. Shrugging, Ichigo said, "We'll see, after 2 hours." Naruto turned to see Yoruichi and Ichigo approaching him. "All right, Ichigo and Naruto, we're going to teach you Bankai now, within 3 days." "What is Bankai?" Naruto blinked. Yoruichi grinned and said, "You realize how your sword doesn't resemble a typical katana at all?" "Yeah." Naruto said, nodding. "It's a Shikai, which explains why. Since a Bankai is a Shikai's evolved form, you become 5 to 10 times stronger and typically have a huge sword." After blinking, Naruto smiled and said, 10 times stronger, I would kick ass." Yoruichi laughed. "You mean, you would kick ass, if it wasn't for the fact that every captain knows Bankai, and they've trained with it for hundreds of years." Naruto broke out in a sweat. Yoruichi then produced 2 enormous objects that resembled paper dolls. "Stab these with your Zanpakuto, and we'll begin training." After exchanging glances, Ichigo pushed Zangetsu forward, and Naruto pushed both kamikazes into it. Because I can't recall how the dolls actually change. The dolls began to glow, and then they changed into the actual Zangetsu and kamikazes in a flash of either orange, for Naruto, or blue, for Ichigo, Reishi. Minato, too. Arashi as well. Puzzled, Arashi glanced around and said, "Didn't expect that." Yoruichi smiled, and Minato shrugged. "All right, Naruto. You're in luck today. You must defeat all 3 of them, not just accept Kamikaze's challenge." "What?" Naruto's eye twitched. "Don't be alarmed, Naruto-san," said the 2 shackled kamikazes as they approached him. Since it will be a battle rather than a puzzle, you will only need to incapacitate me, and the prize will be much bigger. Both stated. Recap. Kamikaze is two hooded guys chained together. Naruto continued to appear perplexed. Your friend isn't very bright, is he? Zangetsu asked Ichigo. Ichigo sadly shook his head. Yoruichi smiled. All right? Only one of these shall defeat me, Ichigo, Zangetsu said, raising his arms menacingly before a slew of replica Zangetsu swords suddenly appeared from the ground. You pass once you found the one. That is the corniest crap ever, moaned Naruto. Then Kamikaze charged at him, saying, just defeat me. Well, that shouldn't be too hard, Naruto smiled. Then, swinging his kamikazes, he charged at Kamikaze. However, he was unable to strike Kamikaze because the kamikazes he believed he was holding were no longer there. Naruto struck his own forehead, saying, gosh. Then Kamikaze charged at him, both of them brandishing swords, and Naruto foolishly attempted to block them with his arms. He gritted his teeth as the blades cut through his arms, then he smiled, leapt at Kamikaze, and punched him. Kamikaze ducked, then kicked him in the stomach with a spinning motion, choking him before he flew back. Naruto crashed into a boulder in agony, then turned to face Ichigo, who continued to break the swords, but once almost scratched Zangetsu. He grimaced, got to his feet, glared at Kamikaze, and charged at him. Don't worry Naruto, he said, quickly pumping all of his chakra into his fist before punching Kamikaze, who simply threw himself out of the way with his own chain before slicing at Naruto once more, barely breathing, and then throwing himself into Kamikaze, headbutting him coldly into another boulder. You have 3 more days to try to beat me. Naruto swore, created some shadow clones, and leapt at Kamikaze after he grimaced and threw some kunai at him, but Kamikaze simply grabbed them out of the air. The Narutos all flew when Kamikaze simply waved his hand. Nice try, Naruto-san. Once more, Naruto snarled. After 3 days, since I no longer have the time to fight for 3 days. Kamikaze avoided every one of Naruto's frenzied attacks with near ease. Kamikaze is an amazing trainer. In terms of taijutsu, Naruto is most likely at Jonin level, Minato said. Kamikaze slammed Naruto into the ground after Arashi shrugged. Sweating, Minato said, okay, hi Chunin, I guess. While Ichigo was doing better than Naruto, who was panting heavily, he managed to scratch Zangetsu, despite the fact that only the real sword was supposed to cut him. Kamikaze stood above him. Kamikaze floated backwards as Naruto gave him a spooky smile and his face began to peel away, followed by the rest of his skin and some of his clothes bleaching themselves. Minato exclaimed, what's going on? It's that thing again, swore Arashi. Then, with his eyes a mad, terrifying black and yellow, his clothes in negative, his skin bleached white, and his hair dull gray, Naruto turned crazily. Kamikaze retreated into a position of defense. Kamikaze ducked out of the way as Naruto suddenly materialized in front of him and slashed at him with his hand, but the air he had slashed at exploded, leaving a huge crater in its wake. His spirit pressure is through the roof. He's losing the equivalent of an entire Ajukasa's reishi every second, but he's making 5 times that too, Yoruichi spit out. Kamikaze turned his head to face Naruto, and Naruto launched himself at him, punching him. Kamikaze avoided most of the blows, but one hit, and he flew to the ground. Naruto smiled once more, flying in Kamikaze's direction, and then he grabbed Kamikaze and began to charge a bunch of reishi in his mouth, in a small compressed ball. Acero? But I didn't detect any hollow powers from him, Yoruichi said, looking stunned. Then, in a wave of darkness, Naruto let go of the black Ryatsu. The cloaks were severely torn, exposing more chains, and the hoods were also torn. It blasted Kamikaze before stopping, and Kamikaze slowly rose before angrily grappling Naruto to the ground while cursed. Seal Naruto hissed angrily and unleashed reishi. Well, I guess I'd better go, Renji said after swallowing. I appreciate the assistance. As he fled, he cried out. Finally, Renji sighed at the surface in relief. Hello, did you hear? Surprised, Renji turned. I've heard that the execution of that one Rukia girl has been pushed to later today, two Shinigami said. Whoa, no way. Renji's face went white. As Ryatsu kept flowing from Naruto, Yoruichi gasped. Hey, I want to say something. Turning to face Renji, Yoruichi said, we kind of have our own problems, she cried out. Rukia is at issue. Today is the day of her execution, then he ascended once more. Then Ichigo froze. Zangetsu swung his sword at him, but Ichigo just jumped over it and turned to face Renji, whispering, what? Zangetsu then swung his sword behind him once more, this time with greater force. Without turning, Ichigo grabbed it with one hand, then effortlessly flipped it around and used it to cut Zangetsu in half. Zangetsu smiled and vanished, while Ichigo appeared to have a major epiphany. Then he turned to Naruto and said, "Damn it, come on, we must leave." "My seals aren't working," Minato snarled. Muttering, Kamikaze said, "I cannot hold him down much longer." "Somewhere. Naruto, where are you?" the Hokage thought as he gazed sadly up at the sky, then sighed and turned to a microphone. "Attention, Konohagakure residents. Please remember that the Chunin exams are in 1 week. When will you be back?" he asked, sighing as he sat down to handle some paperwork. Naruto. Hinata also gazed up at the sky, returning to Naruto, in his thoughts. Naruto's cursed version smiled as he glared at his severely battered negative. "Pathetic. You are useless garbage. It's not funny how far behind you are." Naruto. Naruto pivoted. "What? Those guys are cheering me on. I can't lose." He blinked as he saw a hazy image of his father, Arashi, Ichigo, and Yoruichi. Snorting, cursed. Naruto said, "Want to wager?" Then, just behind him, Naruto delivered a terrifyingly deep slash to his back. "I'll give you this one. But I'll be back." See, Naruto said with a dry smile as he fell, transforming into wisps of shadow. Then, abruptly, Naruto's skin broke and he returned to normal, but waves of black and red reishi appeared off of him, less impressive than harmful. After shouting something that was indistinguishable, he introduced himself to the others. With a gasp of laughter, Yoruichi said, "That's your Bankai? It's puny." Now that Kamikaze was gone, Naruto returned to his Shikai and smiled, saying, "All right, let's go." Rukia cast a sorrowful glance at the location of her execution. "I can't believe they are doing something this inhumane," said Yukitake, who was shivering. He muttered. "Well, she did the unthinkable," Shunsui said with a solemn nod. "However, I do concur. If I'm not mistaken, I haven't watched this episode in 5 months, and I've been reading more. Awesome, Code Geass, best anime ever. Death Note, okay. One Piece, okay. Full Metal Alchemist, and Sheena Dark, second best ever." When the blocks were fastened to Rukia's hands, she was raised up, and some Shinigami began applying seals to the enormous sword. Yamamoto turned to face Rukia solemnly. "Well, have you got anything final to say?" Looking at Byakuya, Rukia swallowed and said, "I just want my friends to be able to let go," she exclaimed. After a moment of silence, Yamamoto nodded, and Rukia grinned with a tear in her eye. Yamamoto then turned to Byakuya and said, "Once she is dead, I want you to kill all of her comrades." Byakuya nodded. The Sokyoku then exploded in flames, and Yamamoto gave Rukia a chilly look before he waved his hand. The Sokyoku then swung at Rukia, who grinned pitifully. "Ichigo, Chad, Ishida, Tatsuki, Orihime, I will miss you." She shut her eyes. They exploded. In front of her, Ichigo was smiling. Rukia looked down after blinking. With a whisper, she said, "You should run." Shunsui and Yukitake exchanged astonished glances. He blocked the Sokyoku on his own. Yukitake inhaled. "He's strong, so who cares? This is our opportunity." Then all of Sokyoku abruptly stopped talking. "What?" Ichigo turned and swung his sword at the pillar as Yamamoto spoke. Getsuga Tensho. The whole thing exploded. Rukia was grabbed by Ichigo and thrown to Renji. "Run," he shouted, and Renji nodded, ignoring Rukia's objections. He turned to Rukia and said, "Yo." Naruto then appeared beside him, smiling. "Huh. You're cute, but I don't understand why Ichigo went to such lengths for you." Ichigo turned to the Shinigami as Rukia steam, cooked. Jijetsubori, crush, Itagumo, run, Ganryumaru, bite. He fell to the ground as 3 Shinigami charged at him. Ichigo was struck by the fat one's ball and chain. How? How is this possible? Izan gasped as Ichigo kicked the British, looking one after punching him straight through the ball. He then turned to face Izan and gave her a single kick that knocked her unconscious. Hana went to her right away, thinking, "This is not my fight, and he's rather strong." After that, Ichigo ran at Byakuya, who gave him a gloomy look. Byakuya then charged at him and swung his katana, which Ichigo easily blocked before Shunpo swung up a few feet and slashed at Byakuya. "Dude, you've gotten slow." Ichigo continued to beat at Byakuya while smiling. Byakuya gave him a chilly look and said, "I don't have time for your rudeness. Senbon Sakura, scatter." Then a plethora of tiny pink blades appeared. Then Ichigo looked into Byakuya's eyes and just slashed through them all, scratching him to his complete surprise. After glancing down at him, Byakuya sighed and said, "Very well, you insolent pest. Show me your Bankai. In the final moments of your life, I will let you see my Bankai, even though you are not even deserving of it." Scatter, Senbon Sakura Kagayoshi. Ichigo then gasped as a whole shitload of blades, "I'm not very good at writing," appeared around Byakuya and then burst into millions of tiny pink blades. Byakuya gave Ichigo a gloomy look before swinging his hand, and all of the blades shot at him like a tidal wave, which Ichigo barely avoided. Once they were in midair, they all shot at him, and he winced as they sliced his skin. After he hit the ground, more struck from underneath and also cut him. Then he was surrounded by a group of them in the shape of a globe. "I guess I was stupid to think I could beat you with only a Shikai," Byakuya said with a slight smirk before hearing someone laugh. Byakuya growled, "You foolish fool. Do you mean that you are acquainted with Bankai?" "Nah. I'm telling you IHVAE Bankai." Then all of the blades were swept away in a massive Reishi pulse or rush. Long black and red cloak, torn, chain, straight, thin, black sword. According to Ichigo, Tensa Zanjetsu, Byakuya jerked. "Are you trying to insult me, boy?" he screamed. "Well, that's just a sealed Zanbakuto." Ichigo smiled and said, "Well, I guess we'll see, won't we?" His eyes then flashed open as the blade lightly scraped his neck. "Well, this spot looks safe." Naruto smiled as he and Renji looked around. "Oh, really?" When Naruto turned and saw a man with dark skin and white hair, he briefly freaked out. "Who are you weirdos?" The white-haired man's eyes remained as small slits, but his smile faded. "Hey, that's not nice. According to Rangaku, I'm cute." "I am Konami Tosen," the dark one said, turning to face Naruto. With a victory gesture of his fingers, the white-haired one turned to face them as well. "And I'm Ichimaru Jin." After removing the kamikazes from his back and turning to face the two, Naruto felt the ground tremble slightly beneath him. He looked up to see a tall man with enormous, spiky hair smiling down at him. "Don't worry," the man said, and Naruto went pale. "Kenpachi Zaraki, I'm here to assist in kicking these clowns." From behind his back, a young girl appeared, "And my name is Yachiru." After swallowing, Naruto turned to face his two enemies and smiled. "Be careful, those two are captains," Kenpachi cautioned. The one with the white hair smiled more broadly. "Shoot to kill, Shinso." With his sword raised, the darker one said, "Smash his limbs, Benihiko." "Well, I guess I'll have to go all out," Naruto smiled. He then exploded into Reishi. Cloak, black, single-breasted. Red fur collar and cuffs. His arms were bound with chains. Two large knuckle blades or trench knives in red and black. As everyone moved away from the Ryotsu he was emitting, Naruto smiled. Akuma Kamikaze. That wasn't Shunpo, Byakuya thought, before he choked as a blade sliced his lower thighs. Ichigo smiled from behind him, and Byakuya narrowed his eyes. "Impossible. This must be a fluke. Someone is helping him." Byakuya snarled, then swung his hand, and a pulse of pink blades flew at Ichigo, who smiled before disappearing. Ichigo smiled again, then swung at Byakuya's chest before both of them leapt back. "No human should know Bankai." Byakuya swore as his cheek was cut open and his left arm was cut before he could blink. Ichigo laughed, then swung down, then grimaced, Senbon Sakura's petals blocking his sword, then the blades grabbed him and cut his skin, hissing as his blood spurted out, then vanishing and cutting Byakuya's feet, then pushing him back and kicking him. With his eyes flashing open, Byakuya then grabbed Ichigo with one hand and tapped him on the shoulder. "Hado. Byakurai. That would have hurt." Jin looked at Naruto dryly before opening his eyes in shock when Naruto appeared behind him and punched at his back. Jin jumped up, dejectedly observing the burst of Reishi that came out of Naruto's Bankai. Suddenly, Naruto was behind him once more, smiling and lowering a trench knife. "Akuma Issei. I looked it up, and Issei can mean shout or cry. I meant demon cry." Jin grimaced and fell as a quick, thin, blunt blast of black Reishi struck him after a sharp noise. Then, as Tosen turned to face him, he laughed and said, "Hey. Why have you not killed him?" Tosen sighed. "What's causing your combat ability to decline?" Then Jin shrugged and said, "Maybe I'm depressed." After taking a deep breath, Tosen swung Benihiko, and a plethora of blades materialized before charging at Naruto, who smiled and said, "Akuma Janpu. My online dictionary says that means demon jump." In a burst of concussive Reishi, he vanished. As Tosen prepared his blade, Naruto began to appear and vanish at random and all over the place, creating craters in the ground and releasing flashes of spirit pressure. He then reappeared behind Tosen and was painfully pushed into the ground by the blast. Tosen looked up icily, then almost lost his face. Huh, maybe I should call that Akuma Barika, Flicker, or Akuma Senku, Flash, Naruto murmured. The second one appeals to me, Jin exclaimed joyfully. Many thanks. Naruto scratched the back of his head and said, happy. Oh wait. I have to kill you, right? Jin stammered. He then swung Shinso, which quickly expanded and almost split Naruto in two. Fortunately for Hinata, Naruto had jumped back, and he then swung his hand menacingly. Akuma Yari, spear. Then Jin was struck by a quick lance of black and red reishi that stabbed into his leg. Am I ever going to get to join in? Kenpachi exclaimed. Then a sword sliced his robes, and he blinked. He turned to Tosen and smiled, saying, finally. Byakuya glared down at Ichigo, who was panting and clutching his shoulder, before putting his fingers on his head and saying, Hado. Then he turned in surprise and a blade stabbed him from behind, choking him. What's wrong? Ichigo sarcastically remarked, you've gotten so slow. Byakuya blinked before being sliced in an X shape across his torso, gasping in agony and collapsing. Ichigo glanced down at him before he turned around and sighed. Well, I suppose I have no other choice. Ichigo spun around once more, startled. Senkei. The entire area then turned black, and Byakuya's blood gradually mingled with the petals. You deserve to be honored. I haven't encountered many opponents deserving of my Bankai in this form. The petals then joined to form hundreds of blades of pink. However, still, you will be killed like the useless dog you are by this. Ichigo surveyed the area calmly. Don't be concerned, you won't be hit by them all at once. Two of the blades then swooped to Byakuya's grasp. I shall murder you with my own power. Then Byakuya swung both blades at Ichigo, who quickly blocked them before gasping as their power pushed him down. Byakuya then took advantage of the situation and sliced Ichigo's stomach, causing him to wince. It's a superficial wound, but the pain is unlike anything I've ever experienced. What? Then Byakuya stabbed him after cutting him once more. After catching his breath, Ichigo lunged at Byakuya once more, nicking his neck but avoiding the artery. Byakuya sighed. Hovering in midair, 10 more blades suddenly appeared before him. It is time to die, Kurosaki Ichigo. Then he choked. He looked down to see a hand firmly around his neck. Ichigo was beaming wildly. I'll teach you how to use Bankai, you weakling. Ouch. Jin said, glancing down at his leg. Rushing toward him, Naruto said, sorry about that. Sorry about this. Blinking, Naruto said, huh? Following a deep cut to his side from Shinso, Naruto flinched before Jin kicked him back and stabbed him into the ground. After spitting up blood, Jin then kicked him in the face. I know Rangaku. Chan would hate this. Why yes, I like Ichimaru, Rangaku. But Aizen. Sama says you should die too, so. Issei, Akuma, Ichimaru was painfully launched into the air. When Tosen slashed at Kenpachi, he sighed and swung his sword, shooting a wave of swords at Kenpachi, who dryly blocked most of them. Tosen was shoved back, and then Kenpachi cut him diagonally across his chest, causing him to violently spurt blood. The blade swung off of Kenpachi, who then smiled wider, releasing his spirit pressure. Kenpachi, Tosen. Why are you fighting? Turning, Kenpachi said, Komamura? Admiral Komamura growled, you have chosen to support the Ryoka. He gave Kenpachi a roar. Oh, this will be fun. Kenpachi smiled. Yes, why? Komamura gave a disgusted shake of his head. Bankai. Kokuho Tengen Myoo. Then Tosen leapt over to Komamura, accompanied by an equally enormous katana and a gigantic suit of armor. Bankai. Suzamushi Suishiki. Enma Kurogi. Subsequently, a massive black dome of energy appeared out of nowhere, and Tosen handed the hilt to Komamura. You must keep this. Otherwise, you will only be able to feel, not see, hear, or smell. Tosen jumped out of the dome as Komamura nodded. Well, the Bankai itself developed a second sword as well. Kenpachi tried to look around while shaking his head. What is this? He tightened his grip on the sword and smiled as a massive blade slammed into his torso, cutting him in a huge, straight line. What is that? Naruto turned. They combined Bankais, whoa. Ken.kun will also perish, with interest, Jin said. With a frown, Naruto turned and said, aren't you already dead? Jin hesitated. True? Akuma Shippu. Jin flew back after being cut by a flurry of reishi blades. and then he extended Shinso to slice Naruto with fire. When Byakuya staggered back, Ichigo stood up, laughing hysterically, a hideous mask that appeared to be made of bone growing on his face, and he prepared his swords, but then Getsuga Tensho. After choking, he flew and struck the ground before bouncing horribly painfully off of it. Getsuga Tensho. He crashed into the sword wall. Getsuga Tensho. His clothing was sliced as he painfully skidded off the swords. Tensho Getsuga. He suffocated as the blast continued to strike him, tearing him to pieces as it did so. No, Byakuya pivoted. Hana. Why is she here? This isn't even canon material. She's strong. Ichigo turned and quickly deflected a blow from Minazuki. Then a foot reached out and slammed him in the throat, choking him. The mask broke as he fell. There is no time for this, Hana sighed. Aizen is a traitor, I've discovered. Ichigo looked up painfully as Byakuya blinked in surprise. Get moving. Captain Hana Shunpo. Ed off after saying this. After panting, Ichigo turned to Byakuya and said, well, I guess we ought to finish what we've started. Byakuya nodded icily. Then, all of the pink blades broke apart and came back together to form a huge white blade in Byakuya's hands along with 2 wings. Ichigo laughed. Well, Zangetsu didn't really teach me much, so I guess I'll just pour all of my Ryatsu into this. After Byakuya nodded, they hurried at one another in a rage. Getsuga Tensho. Shuki. After a terrifying battle between black and white, the Reishi began destroying the entire battlefield to dust. Both were still standing, struggling, until Ichigo and Byakuya both collapsed with a sigh. Sighing, Hana grabbed both and teleported back. As Komamura's Bankai struck him repeatedly, Kenpachi grunted, feeling the pain of the enormous swords. Then he felt another blow and snatched up the blade, smiling. In his hand, he then crushed it. He smiled and said, well, before charging at Komamura with the blade and punching his Bankai. When the darkness fell, Komamura glanced at his Bankai as he choked and fell painfully, dropping both swords. He made a huge dent in a giant that big made of metal? That's impossible. Kenpachi smiled. So, you also get hurt if I hurt that, don't you? Aizen. Was this according to your calculations as well? Tosen said, staring at them in horror. As the scrape on his cheek began to heal and steam, Naruto smiled. For a novice, you're quite skilled with your Bankai, Jin said, and Naruto grinned. Many thanks, however, why do you not use Bankai? Jin grinned. 2 reasons. 1, it would kill everyone here, as I'm Aizen's #1 fighter, and 2, we haven't seen it in the manga, as of January 6th. What the hell is everyone talking about when they say manga or chapter? Moaned Naruto. Renji arched an eyebrow. Didn't you think I had forgotten about him? What, but Aizen is dead. Jin broke out in a sweat. Oops. Then, Aizen was pretending to be dead, which means you both work for him, Rukia snarled. Jin laughed uneasily and said, yeah. Naruto gasped and dropped to his knees as Jin and Tosen Shun PO'd away. Thank God. Then Kenpachi seized Naruto and said, come on. We must now go kick Aizen in the ass. But he was those 2 guys' boss, right? Naruto swallowed. Meaning this will be that more fun, Kenpachi smiled. With panting, Komamura said, I shall go too. With a shrug, Kenpachi said, suit yourself. Yeah, smiled Renji. Well, smiled Kenpachi, I fucking get Aizen. Aizen waited patiently, then grinned. Aizen. How could you? Komamura bellowed, and Aizen grinned. I have my reasons. Aizen snapped his fingers as Komamura screamed and lunged at him. Hado number 90. Kurohitsugi. Komamura was then encased in a black box and struck by blades. When the coffin collapsed, a heavily bleeding Komamura was discovered unconscious. 1/3 of its power, and you were incapacitated, Aizen chuckled. Pathetic. Hey, Aizen. Sama. Aizen looked at Tosen and Jin. Aizen. Aizen turned once more and saw Yukitake, Yamamoto, and Shunsui. Aizen. The lieutenants caught Aizen's attention. Aizen. He smirked as he turned to look at some of the other captains. All right. This is going to be enjoyable. He smiled as he turned to face Kenpachi, Naruto, Renji, and Rukia. Aizen sighed as Naruto charged at him, slamming his Bankai into his sword. Your power is admirable, but compared to mine, Aizen said. He pushed Naruto to the ground after that. You are worthless. Damn. Naruto gasped, his ribs all cracking. Then he, Aizen, was attacked by several lieutenants and the other captains. Jin let out a sorrowful sigh before blinking and sensing that his arm was restrained behind his back. Jin. Jin sadly turned his head and said, Rangaku-chan. Hado. Shakaho. Jin jumped up quickly after gasping, saying, wait, that was directed at Rangaku, not me. He pivoted, saying, Aizen. Sama. With a look of pure hatred in his eyes, Aizen turned to face him and used his spirit pressure in concentrated bursts to push the people attacking him away. He said, a little angrily. She has no use. She is not necessary to us. What happened? Byakuya moaned as he woke up and looked up to see Yunohana. You men. Always fighting, Yunohana sighed. In any case, the boy and you were tied. After a brief period of silence, Byakuya sighed and said, I suppose he was a good enough opponent. Where is he? He asked, turning. He woke up 10 minutes earlier, Yunohana said with a small giggle. It seems that he would be a worthy opponent for you. Byakuya's gaze flickered. Jin, Tosen, get ready, Aizen said with a smile as he turned to face Rukia and pressed his hand into her, causing her to gasp in agony and fall as he pulled out a tiny purple orb. Aizen. That reishi is impressive. What is that? Aizen blinked. Then he turned and stopped Ichigo's furious blow, grinning and saying, not impressive enough, however. Aizen then stepped backwards and slashed at Ichigo, who swallowed, feeling the cut lacerate deep into his body, and fell painfully after he turned and struck a smiling Naruto in the side with a dry finger on his head before pushing. Naruto shuddered and then flew back on his back. Well, I should have cut him in half, but his growth rate is incredible. Then he, Jin, and Tosen were surrounded by a yellow light that blasted down from the sky. Rangaku released it icily. As she began to drift away, Jin cast a sorrowful glance down at her and said, you could have held on a little longer, Rangaku-chan. Rangaku gazed up at him in silence and sorrow. Then Yunohana and Byakuya showed up, and Yunohana looked at them all while raising her sword. Minazuki. Naruto blinked and moaned as he awoke. What happened? Don't worry, you're all right. Yunohana was standing over him when he turned around. Did we win? He said, and Yunohana let out a sigh. Well, everyone survived. That's what matters. Your friends have all been very helpful as well, Yunohana said with a slight smile as Naruto scowled. Ishida.san appears to know a lot about medicine. Ichigo.kun has been helping me. Sato.san has been bandaging, and Orihime. She grinned broadly, her healing ability is amazing. I'm thinking of enlisting her in my team. Well, that's not possible, is it? Yunohana flushed as they turned to face Urahara, who was smiling. Urahara, why are you here? Well, Naruto here has to go home. Urahara laughed. His Chunin exams are in a few days, and he has been sleeping all day. Naruto blinked. Whattt. Don't worry, Urahara said with a smile as she opened a gate to the outside world. There's no issue because you're fully recovered. You're fighting a man named Neji. Then he seized Naruto and threw him through the gate, saying, good luck. Naruto blinked, moaned, and looked around before he fell out of the gate after yelling, Konoha, I've returned, he yelled. Then he dashed to Ichiraku's as quickly as he could. Aizen surveyed the area icily. I can't believe you would hurt Rangaku-chan, Jin complained. Down at the table, Aizen looked. We're pleased to welcome a new 10th Espada into our ranks. One man got up and said, what, you're taking my place? With his green eyes piercing the first person to speak, another said, silence, Yami. Let Aizen. Sama explain. Aizen grinned and said, Yami, know your position will be changed to Noveno Espada. Everyone will advance in rank. Grimjow, for instance, will become the Quinto Espada. Yes, absolutely, with a demon. Like Smile, a man with blue hair said. Ulquiorra the Tres Espada, the man with the green eyes nodded. And Stark the Cerro Espada. A dark-haired man with a lazy appearance looked up. Huh? A man who appeared to be older gazed up at Aizen and said, so, who is the new Decima Espada? Barragan, have patience. Let me introduce him, he said, pointing to a dim hallway as footsteps reverberated from it. With a dry tone, the man said, no need, Aizen.san. Vermin. He thought as he peered out at the others. Zale asked himself, what is Aizen thinking, making him the Decima Espada? He definitely deserves at least the 5th position. The man brushed some of his hair away from his face and grinned. My name is Hisoka Sasaki.
That's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this great story. See you in the next one.